There we are.
We are live on Facebook and we are now live on Zoom.
All right. Well, we'll call the July 13, 2020 meeting of the Cohasset School Committee to order in this nice summer day. We have a short staff a little bit. We still have a quorum. Mr. McClellan is not available. Mr. Carr is not available, but for roll call, we'll start with Mr. Cooney.
Present.
Ms. St. Ange?
Present.
And I, Mr. Dial, I am present. So that brings us a quorum, 3 out of 5 members of the school committee. And so with that, we will do our pledge of allegiance.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a wonderful summer day. School has ended officially, finally. And so we have some things on our agenda, but no major opening remarks. We'll start with public comment. This is the area where we have any public comment that is associated with items not on the agenda. So we'll leave that open. Dr. Sullivan, you have
I will monitor it.
and we'll give everyone a couple ticks for public comment. But I'm imagining many people are not at school committee meetings and at summer activities.
Oh, cool. It's open.
I just want to remind Ms. Owen and Mr. Wonka that it's fine that you're off camera now, but just know that no one can see you until you put your camera on. So when you do want to come in, just make sure you put your camera on. That's it.
So, and I will note that we do have a virtual attendance here with many of the normal presenters. So we will have an efficient meeting, taking advantage of our technology learnings over the past 2 years. So with that, we have no invited guests.
No invited guests.
And I assume no public comments.
No public comments.
All right. So Dr. Sullivan, I'll turn it over to you for our school updates.
Super, thank you. Well, I hope everyone is taking the time to decompress from what was a very challenging year that, as you said, Lance did go very long. It went to June 30th, of course. Luckily, we were met with beautiful weather. So I hope everybody's been out there enjoying it. And, enjoying that family time is so important. It's really an important part of the process of making sure that school is done well too, is to make sure that we enjoy that time when we're away from school. Having said that, we have some programs that are in full swing. We have our extended year program, which is running, and I know that Mrs. Sawanka will talk about that when she does her update as one of the items. And we also have our summer enrichment, our learning program that's running, and many camps that are happening at our buildings, so the rec camps. So our buildings continue to be vibrant, alive places during the summer. We have a tremendous amount of work happening, labor to improve our facilities that I know Ms. Owen will talk about when she does her update, but just a couple of the items that are of major interest to the community, the track, which we are in the process. The track is completely dug up, milled, and it's, we're in the process of going through the cycle to get that track in. I will say that we do believe, and we'll give more information in August, that there will be some interruption of the first week or two of the season. We're very well prepared for that. Just while the track settles, it seems to be an inevitable fact we are hoping to avoid, but it will not be a major disruption to the sports season. And the track is going to look absolutely beautiful. And that's what's most important. And this is just the timeline that it's pretty consistent with any project, the scope. So, and having the ability to start after the spring season, which we started immediately. We couldn't start till July 1st, and that's when we hit it. So I know there's no time wasted in that.
I believe the delta in that time was it's going to take longer than anticipated for the track to actually settle and be used. The work will be done on the time frame, but just to make sure that the track doesn't get ruined on first use.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be done late August. And just to make sure that track is not damaged by foot traffic across back and forth while it's settling, just to follow the prescribed timeline. And we'll have more on that as we come to the beginning of the season. So we have a couple of great things happening with a leadership team. We have our retreat with, we have 2 retreat days, June 19th and August 18th. The first day is actually not, we call it a retreat because it's in this room, but it's an important safety meeting that we have each year. And this safety meeting will involve all members of the leadership team, the district leadership team that is, including the principals, assistant principals, athletic director, and of course, Ms. Ginscall, our MECO director. And we have Chief Quigley, members of the Cohasset Police. We have Chief Dockery from Cohasset Fire and members of Cohasset Fire. We have our Emergency Management Director, Glenn Pratt. We have our technology team there. We have our transportation supervisor. We have members of the school committee. We invited the chair and vice chair to that meeting.
When is that?
It is June 19th.
July 19th.
I'm sorry, should I say June?
Yeah.
I say I said June twice.
Yeah.
I guess I'm still in June. It was such a
Yeah.
long month. July
It's a good
19th.
Yeah.
And, you know, certainly more school committee members are welcome to that. It would be just a matter of making sure we don't have a quorum.
Yeah, well, okay.
Yeah.
I would just, if I could add to that, if I could take just a second to add to what I see out of that, since I'm not going to be at the meeting. More, because it sounds like you get all the players there, would just be a comprehensive plan of what we can do with the drop off. I think that's a huge safety issue.
Yeah.
You got, and
You're talking about the drop off pickup
the
here.
middle high school, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I know there's some challenges with the elementary schools too. There's some cars out in the street, and you guys don't know. And that's certainly not the biggest concern. The biggest concern is just the chaos going on all at once, right? And we got kids walking, they're supposed to go around the parking lot. And again, there was a building that is no longer there anymore that would make it almost impossible for a handicapped kid on a wheelchair to go through, right? So what the kids are doing is they're coming out of school and they're taking a right. And then there's no crosswalk there. They're not supposed to go there, but they do all the time. And the kids are jumping in front of cars. And I witness it every morning. It drives me nuts. The other thing is when you come on Route 3A and you're coming down 3A, and you can talk to some of the teachers on this. There was actually a teacher, as I'm driving, who got in a car accident. And it's on 3A, and when you go down 3A and you're going towards Shaw's, you take that left there. And there should be a delayed light for 5 seconds to let people go. And then it's a chicken game. Like it's ridiculous when you can see the light at Stop and Shop has that option. So when you go to Stop and Shop, you can take a left or you can go straight. So that has an option. But when it comes to Pond Street, the only option is it's a chicken fight. It's absurd. It's absurd. The crossing guard, when you pull in, people are just flying by. You're sitting in your car and some truck just decides that he's angry and flies by. I think if there was a police car there wouldn't be that. So I think a police presence needs to be there. I just think it's school, it's after school, you got kids going everywhere. I just think if we release the kids differently or come up with a comprehensive plan to fix that nightmare, because it's a nightmare.
So Mr. Kennedy, I think that's an important point. I don't know, Dr. Sullivan, if that's part of this safety meeting, but what we want to do.
Well, I can explain what the safety meeting is. So you can
Well, you got all the players.
We'll do that, but I
That's all I'm
want
saying.
to make sure we respond to Mr. King's concern because I think it's very important. What we should do is put this on, and I'm going to keep track of a list of future agenda items that we have in the committee or at subcommittee level. And so we'll make sure the drop-off process is on there so that we can continue to assess. And Dr. Sullivan, you can take Mr. Keeney's comments as licensed to look into what options could be to improve drop-off. I think we heard some specific
Concerns.
concerns. So we'll go for there. But
Yeah,
that's-
no, that's fine. That's fine. I just, when you had mentioned a safety meeting, you got all the players. there.
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, if I was at that meeting, I would say, okay, we need a comprehensive plan to be able to have a safe drop off for my kids, because I don't feel safe dropping them off. I don't feel safe as a driver. I don't feel safe as watching these kids piling in front of cars. It's just,
So we'll keep that on. We'll keep that
Well noted.
on the
Yeah,
agenda.
absolutely.
But as far as this meeting,
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, this meeting is It's a couple, I mean, it also is we're, going over protocols as a leadership team regarding bus safety, bus accidents, how making sure we tighten up that protocol. Threat protocols, if there's a threat, a perceived threat in our building. And also everything that has to do with safety in Glasgow Public Schools. If you remember, we did have a comprehensive facilities report by a company called AI3 who came and presented. As part of that was a security report by an outside security firm. And they went through soup to nuts, everything in our district. And I've shared that with the important players, obviously, and that is what we're doing with them. So
That's
actually,
awesome.
we're going to be in this room using, I'm pointing, so everyone knows I'm pointing towards the Poly, our device here, our ViewSonic, and the members from, I believe it's something in Barazini, was the name of the company, are going to be Zooming with us, going over their recommendations.
That's awesome.
And we already have an itemized list of those recommendations and what they would cost, which I know is near and dear to your heart, which I really appreciate because you're such an eye on safety, which I do too. And it's nice to know that these can be really advocated for in terms of capital improvements.
Right.
There are other things that we're just not going to be able to touch on in this meeting. It doesn't mean we won't before the end of the summer. Drop off and pick up at the middle high school is absolutely one of them. There are some problems we're handed just by nature of the space. And remember, just so everyone remembers, this was totally redesigned to be in this particular format by the emergency management team, which included Chief Sylvia. He actually was really instrumental in drawing the lines that allowed the students to move in and out, to keep the traffic away from the circle where the buses are being dropped off. And then I did put out people who were helping people get out of the cars, that whole system. So we've attempted to do some things. There are some significant issues with crossings. There are some significant issues with traffic and the backup of traffic. And I completely agree. So it is absolutely something that is on my list and my radar. And I look forward to partnering with you on that because we do need some help with that. But anyway.
Well, I just want to allude to what you just said, and people should know that, how good money was spent. I mean, if you sound, did we need $250,000 to tell us we needed a new middle school? That would be the question. But the good news is with that money this is what we got out of it. Is these recommendations they're actually priceless.
It's very comprehensive.
It does go to that, it was a lot of money when you think about it to do it, but there's a lot of good that came out of it. And I'm happy that they're using that money and it's used in a good way.
And this is just, we do this, we meet with the police regularly and often other emergency officials too. So this summer meeting is something that we always do. This one and we always go over our crisis plan, the long and short plan, what we're doing after school, for instance, in crisis. We have a lot of things, how we're looking at our systems and how we can utilize them better. We have some really good camera systems, some excellent alarm systems, but how can we work them and staff them so that they're working more comprehensively? So there's a lot of good information. I'm kind of calling this my leadership team. They're going to be sick of it, but sort of the summer of safety for me. That is what we're hitting. We're hitting the ground running with that. And our first meeting is completely about safety and also looking at the strategic plan, looking at kind of in a reflection, sort of what we did, what we said we were going to do and maybe need to capitalize on more, and then what our strategic initiatives are for 2022-23. That will also spill into our August retreat, which we actually have at the Lighthouse Keeper's house, which is nice. And that's a little bit more gearing up for the year, looking at our professional development, kind of a little bit more of what are we taking from the strategic plan and making sure that we put into our goals. That's where we set our goals as a leadership team. And, like I said, one of the greatest things about the strategic plan is it aligns all of the goals. right from the school committee's goals to the superintendent's goals, to the leadership goals, to the school improvement goals, to the teacher goals and all of our staff members. So they were all kind of rowing in the same direction. And, you'll expect information from that meeting to come to you as we in turn set our goals as a school committee and a superintendent.
On the second meeting, the
Yes.
leadership meeting, setting priorities, do you mark out in advance agendas for those?
We have agendas set for those, yeah.
Would that be something you'd be willing to share with the committee at maybe the meeting in advance, just so we?
Oh,
can see what's
absolutely.
going to,
A-
And that way the
Absolutely.
community can also see, because, it's good to show the work that goes into these. I know, that-
Yeah.
and they're very busy and very packed and lots of
Sure.
stuff gets done. But showing the committee at large and the community, the things we're talking about, I think
Yeah.
is a.
Oh, I think that's a great idea. And actually, and people should also know that, these are not the only times that we're meeting. We're meeting constantly. It's just that in terms of a retreat, I mean, a retreat is supposed to do a couple of things. It's supposed to allow us to reflect on what we've done, and it's a lot, and then it has us regroup and make sure that we're moving in a
Right.
direction that is, in this case, very well articulated by our strategic plan. And of course, that we re-energize ourselves as a team. So like any retreat in any business, that's what we're doing, particularly on the second day. First day is, we're going to do some reflection, but we're also going to do a lot of safety work to make sure that we're hitting the ground and in September in a really safe manner. So that's exciting. Also exciting, and who doesn't love ice cream? But August 24th, we are having a Cohasset School District ice cream social. Basically, for anyone involved with Cohasset School District. We are inviting all families who have students here. And we're going to do it out here on the front field, and it's August 24th from 5:30 to 7:30. I'm partnering with the PSO, potentially some other groups too, but PSO is so helpful in this area. And really what this is just a chance to say we've been through a couple of really difficult years as a district. Let's reboot and remember how special this place is, and go forward with a really fresh energy. And that's something that I'm really looking forward to. And I'm very excited to announce that we have ratified, the CTA, Class Teachers Association, has ratified their contract negotiations with the school committee. School committee has voted to approve what we've determined to be appropriate from a negotiating perspective already. So those are go-aheads. We're drafting the contracts to reflect that. And it was really important just to be specific, for the teachers unit, the secretaries unit, and the ESP unit.
Are they signed already?
They're signed.
Okay, cool.
So they've been ratified, and we're just going to check the signing, but we voted on it. They've ratified it.
Yeah, I think, did Roseanne ever, I don't know that we ever saw the final, she was gonna turn it into a amended restated.
She is.
I don't think she's done that.
She hasn't done
So I don't
that
think we've signed it yet.
No, maybe not.
So.
We can't really discuss some of the good things that are in there.
Well, we can discuss some of the good things.
I don't necessarily want to, because it's
Until
not on
it's
the
signed.
agenda.
Okay,
Um,
if you want to put it on the agenda,
but we
I didn't know if it would just be a comment about about that, but since it's not signed, I don't feel comfortable giving comment.
Well, I mean, everything's voted, it's been audited, we're at that point, but I understand not being an agenda item. If I could just say, there are a couple of themes that we looked at. Obviously, we want to make sure that all of our educators are respected and that are provided with competitive and appropriate salaries and incentives to ensure that we really value them. That was a primary importance. We have an incredible staff, the 3 units that I just mentioned, and also I should mention our food service unit was also they also ratified, and we voted on that, so that they're also in that. And then we've 1 additional unit, so all 5 of our units were up
Thank you.
this year. And I feel very confident that we're moving in the right direction with our custodial unit
Right.
too. And that but I should say that was a major point. And then we were really stressing as a team now, and you really come together as the CTA and our team. We were coming together to make sure that we focused on safety and engagement. And engagement in this particular case deals with students and deals with families. And that was very important to us, and you can see that in items such as parent-teacher conferences
Right. That's
at
exactly what I
the
want.
middle school and high school, which are in there.
Yep.
Some safety
Chefs.
items about being here before and after school for a certain amount of time so that we are staged and ready for our kids to come in. And then there's a whole slew of other things that we work through with our units to make sure that they were respected and that we helped them and their families as well. So it was a collaborative process where I felt like both groups looked at what was important, and I'm very proud to say we've reached an agreement. And I thank publicly Ron Ford, Cheryl Chapman, who were the chairs of the CTA. And everybody that negotiating team and everyone that helped with that process. And then, of course, I'd say the same with the folks from food service and even our ongoing work with the custodians. It's been very productive, and I'm excited to have that behind us, but also to move forward with what we've gathered from that.
And Mr. Green, if you have a brief comment, feel free to make it.
Yeah, the reason why, and I don't like to go off topic, and I'm sorry if I do, what I'm trying to say is that this is news, right? So the news is that parent-teacher conferences are now part of the middle high school. That's big news.
Yes, they
That's
are.
big news.
Mhm.
And the fact that the janitors, custodians, thank God for them, they're now cleaning the outside of the buildings, which is a huge step. And then finally, there was one other point.
The food service too.
Services
Chefs.
to be chefs. Just, these are just goals that I just don't think, I just want people to know about.
Yeah.
Like I said, like the same thing with, because I think more information people have, like what you alluded to, Lance, was like, if you let us to see the agenda, the more information the more we know,
Yes.
the more, the better.
And I think we can add that to
Yeah.
the future agenda, and I can
Yeah.
really go over.
Go over it. Exactly, like, I would say, like, some of the, when we had the student services, some of the parents that are in here, I guess it's what they were saying to, that I could echo from a parent's perspective.
Mhm.
That is, you don't know what you don't know, and I want to know. That's the question. So like, parent-teachers conferences, we're the only district around that doesn't have it, as far as like, I don't know.
We do now.
But we do now. But the problem is that people don't know what they don't know, right?
Right.
Like, I didn't know that we're supposed to have each, I thought it's over in middle school. But Brockton High has it, all these friends of mine that are in the schools, they're all having it. So my point is that we just got to get that information out to people. So if you bring it up as an agenda or the item, then we can come in and teach the parents what they
I
can
like that.
prepare for.
Mhm.
So you got 10 minutes, right? You better have your act together. You better do this, this, and this, and you better show up, because, if you respect your kid, you want to get everything you can out of this meeting. And it's important. And like, as a father who fell asleep during the pandemic, and if I swear, if I had a parent-teacher conference, I got to it,
Mhm.
but I felt like I didn't know.
Yeah.
So it's what you don't know. And the more we tell people
Yeah.
things like that, they're gonna go, wow, well, all right.
I
'Cause
agree.
I know I'm excited. I just want everybody else to know, like, what all the hard work that you guys have done is awesome. I just wanted to bring that.
It is, and I appreciate that, and I think the community does as well. And
Yeah.
it's really a formal time to have that check-in. And remember, our teachers are also available to check in at any point.
Right.
But the parent-teacher conferences, that really does, it really does act as a formal check-in for you with your student. And I'm sure, as I do with my own kids, it's time for some conversations with my kids about how they're doing. So you're getting that formative check-in. It's really nice. So
Right, and especially when the kids know you're gonna be my teacher.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we still have to work out the format and what the best format is
Yeah.
for those
Yeah.
conferences with the CTA, and we look forward to that.
Yeah.
They were very responsive to that.
That's some good stuff.
There's some very good things in it, and, it's just, I think it'll be nice to have that, behind us, but also to use that to improve the district from both ends. And so it's nice that we came to that. And, unfortunately, there are a lot of districts out there that aren't in this position right now. So I feel very happy that we are where we are, moving forward. So that was sort of it for my major things, although I think both Barbara and Sue will, in their reports, will touch on other things that are happening in the district as well. And in terms of academic initiatives, Dr. Scollins is away for this meeting. I knew she would be when we said it, but she promises and will deliver a more substantive academic report at our August meeting, which will talk about elementary reading, math, and a lot of the work we've been doing this summer to get ready for the year to come. So
That's on the next agenda?
that'll be on the next.
Okay.
So that'll close out our school news.
That'll close out the school news.
Updates and academic initiatives will effectively table because we've, so now that brings us to, I think, our Student Services Forum update with Mr. Wonka.
Yes, and Mr. Wonka is joining us via Zoom, shades of yesteryear. But welcome,
Exactly.
welcome, Barbara.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here with all of you. So the last time that we met, we actually finished up the Student Services Forum. If you remember, we kind of went across 2 meetings to finish that up. And we also did our end of the year report. I think there were a couple of points on the Student Services Forum that people wanted to go over a bit in tonight's meeting. So we're going to take a look at some of those. One of the first points that I recall being on the list was about MTSS. So what I want to say, and this kind of goes to Mr. Kearney's comment about kind of, money is well spent on any kind of, independent commissionings or evaluations that we do. Certainly across this year in listening to families and in looking at our, really remarkable services that we provide in Cohasset Public Schools, but also looking at the places we need to grow. It was clear to me that reading was one of them, but as all of you know, I commissioned an independent evaluation in the area of reading to kind of, have another set of independent eyes on that, tell us, where we were moving in the right direction, where we needed to grow and continue to move. And one of the things that came out of that was commendations around our MTSS system, that a commendation to the district for its commitment, but more importantly, actually, how strong it was in teacher and administrator awareness and activity. And that our work in setting up the MTSS task force and trying to refine and vertically align the MTSS across the district, was really kind of moving that in the right direction. I know last year, for the first time ever, we sent out a blanket letter to all families and we explained what MTSS was as an overview in that letter. I know we talked in our last meeting about notification to families, and that is very important. Most of the time across this past school year, and I think previous as well, notification of families went via phone, but we do have tiered letters to go home to families for each of the MTSS tiers when students are originally brought to the team and if they continue to kind of move through the process. And Dr. Sullivan, I don't know if you want to share some of those on the screen, and here we go.
Yes, and I should say, we did hear this loud and clear at the Student Services Forum. And we did address it, and we found that there were pockets where we weren't necessarily communicating in the way that we had set out to communicate. This is going to be standardized and delivered starting at the fall. So this is what you will receive, and we've already talked to the the principals about this. So I just want everyone to know what you're seeing here, which we will have on our website. They're obviously presented as documents, will be what we use at every school. So,
And just to make the fine point, I think one of the comments that I recall from that forum is there was some concern raised that there were parents of children who were moved into a MTSS step
correct.
who were not aware
Yes.
that it happened. And so what you were saying is that you found pockets where that may have occurred,
We did.
and you've corrected it with, whatever process, and now we have a standardized process. So if your child gets moved into a step of the MTSS, there will be a communication to
Yeah.
the family.
We found and correct me if I'm incorrect here, Barbara, but the vast majority of schools and situations were being communicated.
Yes.
But we did address the pockets that weren't. So I do want people to know that.
Yep. So we have a series of letters here that explain the MTSS process, that also explain, everything that goes along with it, and what the level at which the child is at, and what that means, and what the follow-up will that be, and also, how to reach out to and who to reach out to in the school. And you may get them signed by the school principal as opposed to myself, which would be fine. They can make them their own in terms of the signature. You can see that they come out from the Office of Student Services. But we just went through the one that would have been a tier 3 letter.
Yeah, they're oddly placed on the PDF. So that was
That's
tier
fine.
3. This is tier 1.
This actually would be the tier 2 letter. It talks about the child participating in tier 1 already.
Sorry.
And this would be the tier 1 letter.
And this doesn't mean, Barbara, that this is the only way we're going to communicate.
It absolutely does not, but nothing truly can match a phone call and that kind of outreach to a family.
Or
That kind of verbal communication where you can really talk through things is critical. And some families, I'm sure would want a follow-up after receiving a letter like this to kind of talk in more detail about what it means.
But we want to make sure we automate this so that no one has the experience of being surprised when they hear their child is being helped on a level that they should be.
I know I had asked the question before about indicating tier level support in Aspen. Is that a way to indicate that been identified, or is it still in the works?
There is. So I know in my previous district, we did that, and it was particularly helpful in when we transitioned between buildings,
Yeah.
because then you knew that the student had been receiving interventions,
Yeah.
and it triggered the teacher to be able to look and see, this is something that
Nice.
happened. This is part of the process of things that we should put in. But I don't want to speak for Barbara, who's leading the team with Leslie. So Barbara, is that something you've discussed yet?
That's something that actually Leslie and I have been talking about, having some conversations with Lisa Radden about this summer, and see how we can really leverage Aspen a little bit more to our advantage to really present a whole picture of a child.
I've seen it done, and I've seen it effectively. So it should be, that's something that should happen.
I think especially with our split of lower and upper elementary, it would be so helpful just because things change so much, especially in those years.
Yes.
For there to be a running record with dates to say what's been going on. It's just really nice to have that information.
Absolutely.
Like,
We do have,
Clearly
a nice, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
We do have a nice transitional system where we have conversations happening between our MTSS teams, so that they.
Absolutely. And I also know that all of the MTSS, it's conducted through Google Docs right now, which obviously are shared grade level to grade level and school to school. But certainly having it in Aspen would be bringing it to yet another level.
yeah, I just think for ease of use, I mean,
Absolutely.
Barbara, Pat, and I, at least, who have been in classroom settings or school settings, like, so much is happening during the day. It's nice to have one central location to get a quick peek at what's happening,
You got
and
it.
not always having to search for that Google Doc. It just would streamline things, I think.
Absolutely, yeah,
I agree.
notification.
Right. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, give me a little bell icon and I'll click
That's
on
right.
it.
That's right.
Yes.
So that's.
And then this is the general overview letter.
Does the team have any questions on these letters and, or the pathway we're taking here?
It's great.
Okay, then we just gotta make sure that we're, this is something we need to be vigilant about and make sure what's happening.
I have one question on the cover, the letter that shows up first, which looks like transitioning from
This
tier
one.
tier
Tier
three.
3, yeah.
In the third paragraph, it says, you will be periodically notified of your child's performance. Is there a more specific timeline? More specific than periodically? Like, is it 6 to 8 weeks? Is it, I'm just thinking of intervention periods in my own job.
Right.
That's a good one.
I'm just wondering, I guess for a form letter, it's easier to be general, but I just feel like as a parent, periodically doesn't make me feel better, like a number
Right.
of weeks makes me feel better.
And that's kind of the importance of that individual conversation, because students will come to MTSS and participate in tiers for varying amounts of time.
Yeah,
So, we don't really want to pigeonhole anyone in kind of a blanket letter like this, but we do want parents to know that there's going to be some regular performance updates.
What could be a helpful thing here is if we had an FAQ document
yep,
that did sort of spell out typically types of things that happen in RTI and in this case MTSS, but that might be something. to look at.
yeah, I just think that anytime we're talking about our children and help, it's really helpful to have a timeline laid out.
Mhm.
That,
Well, I mean, and you're correct, the tiered, it's timed and tracked.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I know how progress monitoring works. Like, it's
Of course you
the
do.
data's
Yeah,
there.
Yeah.
How is it being reported out, and
Mhm.
and parents of course deserve to hear that and know what to expect
Yes.
in more specific terms.
Good point.
Yes. Okay. So some of the other things that we discussed in that meeting and that we went over, one of them was around the IEP process. And once again, I have to say, in Terry Ham's report, she really talked about the IEP process in terms of how knowledgeable and committed the team chairs are and how committed to communication, especially with oftentimes, if we're in a virtual meeting, projecting the IEP on the screen for the team to develop together. And one of the feedbacks that we received from families, and one of the things that we're going to move forward on, is that especially, but not only for our families of students who are undergoing an initial evaluation, the IEP meeting follows a very specific process. And it will be very helpful. And we're going to create, myself with the team chairs, in our summer work that we do together, a standard agenda for IEP meetings so that parents can see when certain parts of the meeting are coming up and when things that they may have questions or concerns about will be addressed, so that they're able to stay present in the moment in the meeting and really hear what's going on and not be thinking, oh, I really want to know this, or I have to ask this because I'm not sure that we're going to get to this. And that will really, I think, help in the communication and in the participation in the team meeting if it's very clear in agendas for every meeting what's being discussed, the order in which it's going on, when we're going to get there. So that's something that we are going to be working on for all of our IEP meetings for this upcoming school year.
We do have a question here.
right.
If you'd like me to
Ms.
go.
Swan, are you ready for questions?
Well, sure. Why
All right.
not?
Let's have it.
So this is from Cassie Muir from 40 Redgate Lane. And Cassie has asked, given that the district funded this independent specialized reading review of our tier 3 intervention, where will this report be published for all interested families to review the full report?
So we've done independent evaluations before, and actually, Dr. Sullivan, I believe you and I had a conversation about this. It's not my knowledge that the practice has ever been to publicize the entire report. I know I presented the report to you. I presented the, I gave you the report. I presented the report thoroughly at our CPAC meeting. And I discussed at that meeting, putting the highlights of the report up on my website, which I would be happy to do. But you may have other thoughts around this.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, it's certainly we want to be transparent. We just want to make sure that, you know, we do do internal reviews all the time, and not every internal review should be published necessarily. It's just a fact of the way organizations work. So this may not be one of those that doesn't need to be published, but it is something that, you know, we can discuss more deeply. I do completely agree that an overview of the document and the findings of the document would be meaningful. It would be something to put on there. But, you know, I don't want to make a blanket statement that every internal document, every internal review we have should necessarily be put out in complete detail for the public. I don't think that's an appropriate measure in any organization. And I don't think that has anything to do with transparency. It's just that, you know, sometimes things need explanation and they need description as you go through it. And if you're not there to provide that explanation and that it may not be something you want to publish in its entirety. But I do agree that we want to put, you know, some highlights in there. And certainly, you know, we're wide open to review anything in regards to any questions that people have or any concerns or thoughts. But I will relook at the document because maybe, Barbara, it is something we can put up there. But
it may very well be. And like I said, I had committed in the CPAC meeting to kind of put up on my website, you know, the overview and the key points. But we can review that together and make a decision about it, Dr. Sullivan.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Cheer the better.
She's asking, I'm sorry, just a follow-up, was it a public funded report? Well, everything is public funded by, you know, that comes out of the school district, absolutely. So, I mean, I'm just saying as a school leader, I don't think every single thing that we have done, I mean, that it couldn't be.
It's certainly not the custom, and we don't want to create a deluge of reporting for everyone to sift through and just say, here's everything, figure it out. So there's value in finding things, summarizing, but one of our goals is communications and transparency with families. So Ms. Muir, we take your point. I think Dr. Sullivan is committed to looking at the report and determining what can be, what makes sense to make public, what makes sense to summarize, because there are benefits to both.
Yeah.
But I support your Ms. Muir, your idea of making sure that parents have information necessary for them to evaluate both their students and their schools. So
yeah, let's do it.
We'll take a look at that. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, Ms. Ronka, the floor is still yours.
Okay, thank you. One of the other questions that came up at the forum was around sharing test results with families 2 days prior to a meeting. So again, I kind of want to go back to the document and just say that, you know, Terry Ham really commended us on a thorough, reliable, and valid evaluation process, particularly around including independent evaluations, and just called it a really first-rate system of evaluation for child find. I understand what, you know, what was raised around receiving an evaluation report 2 days prior to a meeting. I have to say and I think I said before, the standard is that if parents request a report, we provide it 2 days prior to a meeting. We provide them to all families here because we just believe that that is a good way to do business. But part of the IEP meeting, and the most important part of it really, is that team process. And that's part of the coming together, is having that person who has given the test, whether it be a speech pathologist or a school psychologist or an occupational therapist, to really thoroughly explain their results and connect them to what is being seen in school, And I, even with all of my many years of experience in special education, would never presume to fully understand or be able to do that. You really need to have the person who is knowledgeable in that to explain it. And it really is so valuable in creating that team and that dialogue and that conversation. Not to mention that, 2 days is the standard requirement. And we always conduct all of our testing as timely as we can. We do not necessarily take the full 30 days to do it. We do not necessarily take the extra 15 within which to conduct a meeting. If we can do it sooner than that, we do, and we get those things out to parents if we can. But I can't shorten that for our evaluators. And I just want the families to understand the value we see in them having the reports, but also the value in going over them within team process. And we do what we can when we can do them sooner, we do, and we will continue to commit to doing that. But that is, those are my ideas around the testing.
Ms. Swaga, one of the things that I heard, and I don't think anybody debates that the going over the team process and going through the report is valuable and in fact necessary to really understand what's going on. But I guess what I want to zero in on is that I think the request was, could parents get the reports 2 days in advance? And are you saying there's a logistical check? Because what I think I
No,
heard,
they do get them 2 days in
You
advance
get
of the
2 days.
meeting.
And we'll
And
continue.
the request then was, could they get it more than 2 days in advance? And was that the request? Was that the request at the forum? I'm just trying to remember.
The request at the forum was to get it as, they want as much notice as possible, and the 2 days is a little short.
So-
The problem that we have is that that's a legal timeline, and we don't want to go beyond that as a promise.
Yep.
Because it's just something that we don't feel comfortable doing, even though the legality is that if they have to request it for us to give it to them necessarily, like we give it to them anyway too.
Right, which is a change of policy, correct,
I'm wondering,
from last time?
maybe,
It's something that we're doing, but I'm sorry,
That's fine.
we're doing that, but the point I think Barbara's making is that we technically don't have to, but we want people to at least have the 2 days. The problem is that we come down to is committing to more than that is problematic for us from a lot of different perspectives.
And so the request was, can you commit to do it for more than 2 days? I think the answer is no,
Yeah.
which makes sense. We are staffed and resourced to
Mhm.
do this model with 2 days. So
Mhm.
what we've done is we heard, can
Yep.
look into seeing if you can extend that time frame. And what I hear from Mr. Ronk is we've assessed our resources and our capabilities and knowing what we have to do in our legal obligations. And we would be uncomfortable making any commitment more advanced than 2 days.
That's it.
That's correct.
So I think that makes sense. That makes sense to me.
I feel like I cut off Lydia.
I just wanted to kind of to clarify as well. At that 2 days prior to the meeting, are families receiving something digital and a hard copy, or just digital?
They are receiving it however they request it.
But we're providing it 2 days without them requesting it though. So what do we
Yes.
do, digitally or?
So
that's-
oftentimes they are asked how they would like, because we're providing them, how would they like to receive their reports? I can't say that every single time, every single parent is asked, but I do know that they are asked and they receive them the way they ask for them.
Okay, so here's my question.
Okay.
If someone is saying, I want a hard copy 2 days before the meeting, then that means that hard copy is prepared more than 2 days before that and then is delivered to them, right?
That is correct.
So it is ready more than 2 days ahead of beforehand.
But you can't give it unless it's.
Well, again.
Not necessarily, because sometimes we have to call parents and say, it is 2 days before the meeting, your hard copy is here in the office. Would you like to come and pick it up?
All right. I'm just curious, and I just love a good spreadsheet. I'm just curious if, as this year goes on, if data could be kept on when letters are sent out and what, like, in comparison to meeting dates. I'm just curious because I feel like when we speak about things in generalities, it's, we think certain patterns exist, but then when we actually track dates, it might be different than we think. So that's just some information I'd like to see. Because I feel like perhaps it could be done a little bit earlier. And I completely understand and appreciate the legality of the system and and what the requirements are and how long it takes to do things in school. But I think we also have really great practitioners who can be responsible. And even if it's one day earlier, and we're not saying that's a promise, but if that's where we're trending, I think that would be a great direction to be trending.
So I think just to recast that request, because I support it as well. As we go forward in the year, let's continue our exploration on whether or not we could maybe advance more than 2 days by looking at what we're able to do as we move forward with the year. And so maybe as part of your regular reports, Ms. Swanka, we could see, what the lead time was and how much time we had to do things in reports. I don't know what the actual metrics can be, and I want to make sure we're respecting confidentiality and all the various concerns. So I'm not dictating to you specifically what the metric is, but for the committee to see, what that lead time looks like, so we can see how much room we have just in our normal operations. And then maybe we realize, hey, look, we're looking at this and we do have a little more space than we thought we did.
Right.
Or the data bears out. We're hitting 48 hours every single time. In fact, we're pushing. So we just I think that'd be helpful, because I know this is a big issue for members of the community. And so I don't want to give up on it just yet. If that's okay.
I'd just like to see from actual data.
Yep.
Sure, that's fair.
Absolutely, we can track it. It is the standard in the regulations, but we will track and see how our district individually does with it.
Yeah.
And I would say, kind of month by month isn't going to make a lot of sense, because some months are busier than others. But I think perhaps, quarterly, we can present and take a look at it.
Yeah, and we can do it quarterly. Let's figure out what the best packaging is for that.
Absolutely.
But I think the idea is clear.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right. So one of the last things is that one of the recommendations which we were trending toward was looking at, and I want to be clear on what the reading evaluation was. It was a special education reading evaluation, and looking at what already exists and how we should grow. And certainly we were, had a lens toward this already. But one of the recommendations that came out of it certainly was to pilot a program at the elementary level that would not match, but would kind of run in conjunction or along the same lines as a program that we have at the middle school level. It would be kind of a feeder program for that, commensurate with what is appropriate at the elementary level. And so as such, we were able to post for a special education reading teacher for the Deer Hill Elementary School. And we actually have conducted our interviews around that. And what that means is that there will be an extra special education teacher at the Deer Hill Elementary School for the grades 3 through 5 students whose focus is going to be in the area of reading, is really for that tier 3, if you will, level of student who really requires a reading system as the specialized instruction and has gone through some of, the tiers of interventions in reading supports and so on and so forth. There's going to, be an entrance and exit criteria to such a program and things like that. But we're very excited to be able to announce this program and this expansion at the Deer Hill Elementary School in the area of specialized reading.
And this is something that we had brought to the attention of the Finance and Facilities Committee, so that you knew that it was budget neutral in the way we were able to package it. So that's good.
Is that am I allowed to ask the question?
Yes, you are. You are recognized formally.
Just busting out. There's so few people here.
I know.
Is that teacher Wilson certified, Mrs. Sirolka?
So that teacher will be trained and, yes, Wilson certified in the level which is appropriate for the elementary.
Yeah, just curious, since we use foundations, so having Wilson.
Absolutely. Having Wilson's will go hand in glove with that.
Yeah.
And you'll hear a little more about this in my hiring report.
Fabulous.
All right. Mr. Wong, anything else?
Just as Dr. Sullivan said, ESY is running. I know, like my similar towns around me, we have had some challenges filling the teaching positions of ESY. I know this week we had one of our teachers out sick for the week. I just want families to know we are cognizant of all of those things and will make sure that all students receive all the services that they need to through our district. In one form or another, hopefully across, during this summer. But it is up and running and going well.
Great. All right. Mr. Kearney, any questions from you?
See, DSY, what, for the record, what is that?
So the extended school year program, that's a good question,
Okay,
is a program that students qualify for through their IEP
okay,
if they demonstrate significant regression after breaks in education. So for example, long weekends, school vacations, so on and so forth, and an unusually longer time than typical students to recoup those skills. And if they meet both of those criteria, then we determine that it is recommended that they receive some instruction over the summer in whatever areas they regressed and did not recoup in the way that we expected them to.
and thank you, Bob, for all you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
With ESY, is each student given like a progress report from that summer, from that ESY program?
So ESY is not for students to actually move forward in their education. It's to keep those skills. So there is, and it is going to be new under me this year, there is going to be an end of ESY progress report that comes out to families. It is going to be around, though, retaining those skills.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You got a tough light situation happening in your house there, Barbara.
Yes, the sun is moving.
Sun has found you.
Given to families and to teachers, like their next grade level teacher?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
That ESY progress report regarding retention of skills is sent to families. Is it also sent to the classroom teacher for the coming school year?
It will be, because it will be part of that student's record.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So it's like I've never seen before. It looks like we had a raised hand on the, do we have a public comment?
We do not have a public comment. Is there a raised hand there?
I thought it's a Judy Leclerc raised hand.
Oh. No, I don't know. It may be just a mistake. Ms. Leclerc, if you'd like to ask a question, you can just do so in the Q&A feature, if you're listening. Sometimes she took it down. I do that all the time. Maybe, I'm not saying Ms. Leclerc did that, but I hit the button and it's up and then
Say,
I get
she's
it
like,
up.
please tell the
Yeah.
question.
I use that as an opportunity to show just how attentive we are at the.
That was good. I didn't catch that.
Wow, Chairman.
Yes. Where public comments are welcome. Ms. Daniels, any other questions for
No,
Ms.
I will stop asking questions.
your questions? Are always welcome.
Good, great
So-
questions.
Ms. Wonka, I want to merely thank you for your work with the Student Services Forum and your openness to follow up with the needs of the community and the requests. I think that will help make us a stronger district, more transparent, and let people know exactly all the good work that's going on in student services. So thank you for your continuing and your future work.
Thank you.
And Mr. Marker, if you don't mind just staying on.
I
through-
will stay on. I'm just going to close my blind.
Okay, just do the hiring report and the planning for the future document.
Perfect.
Thank you.
With that, we close out teaching and learning. We'll move on to budget resources and governance. And for that, I think, Dr. Sullivan, I'll turn it back to you for a staffing and hiring report.
That's great. We did have a question for Ms. Leclerc.
Okay,
All right.
we'll rewind,
So we'll rewind. I suppose.
reopening teaching and learning, student services forum update.
Okay, so, Ms. Leclerc, if you could just follow up with your address, that'd be helpful, just for the record. And Ms. Leclerc says, thank you, ha. I did have a question on ESY and I'm concerned about the certified Wilson and OG trained teachers for dyslexic students over the summer. Okay, so I'm taking that the question is, it's not phrased as a question, but I guess the question is, do we have Wilson and OG trained teachers for dyslexic students over the summer? I'll phrase it
So
as-
at this point in time, we do not. We are recognizing that. We are providing special education teachers and tutors to provide, because that is what ESY is about. It's about the IEP, to provide the instruction, but we are continuing. And I just reached out to someone again today to get a Wilson, at least trained person available for ESY. And, if we're able to do that, then
Yep.
we'll be able to provide those services both for the time moving forward and the other time.
And we've noted the desire for it, and we're trying. It's just we can't always hire someone who is. It's not up. Sometimes you don't have that as an opportunity when you're hiring folks. So, but thank you for that. And it's 82 Pond Street, Ms. Leclerc, and she had a follow up. It said at the middle school there are not certified OG and Wilson trained teachers for dyslexic students, and I'm concerned that this will not meet their IEP.
There actually is a Wilson trained and certified teacher at the middle school for students who require that level. And, if that's an individual question, I can follow up with Mrs. Leclerc.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Leclerc.
Great. All right. So no further questions. We will restart budget, resource and governance.
Of course.
And Dr. Sullivan, we turn it over to you for a staffing hiring report.
Yes.
Staffing and hiring report.
Yeah, so we have been very busy and we're very excited. I'm trying to make this a little bit bigger, see if I can do it. Yeah. Oh, that's too big. That's pretty good. We'll go with that. All right. So the way this is listed is these are either new or existing positions. And again, the new position, other than the one that is first here, which we just described, are positions that were allocated through our budget process and approved by the school committee. And you can see if they're blank, that means we haven't hired the person yet. But thankfully, at this stage, there are far more spaces filled in than there are blanks, and that makes me very happy. And the quality of educators that we're bringing on are second to none. They're just wonderful, and I feel very good about the trajectory with these hires. And I want to thank the teams. Just so folks know, we have a collaborative process in place where we hire with teams. So we have staff members involved, often with department heads, with principals, and it's a collaborative effort that we have a really prescribed method to hire these folks, and it's paid off. And that's the same method we put forward in hiring all the administrators that you'll see at the bottom of the document. We've renewed, which is wonderful. So we did mention, you'll see the name of the individual that we've hired for the position. This was a transfer position. So Carrie Foley, who was a wonderful fourth grade special education teacher, has taken on that elementary school special education reading teacher position, which I think folks will be very happy about because she's a very strong teacher. And that gives us the opportunity, as you can see, 3 down from that, her position now opens up. And again, that's a budget neutral position because of some areas we were able to reduce. In this case, it was from ESPs, which I think work out really well with this. These existing positions are either retirements. People don't leave class very often, but we have a couple of shifting around here. But we were able to hire these next 2 individuals, Cara DeSalvo and Kaylee Schneider, in 5th grade teaching positions. They've been with us teaching long-term sub positions for the year and have really done a fantastic job. Could not be more thrilled to see them rise to the top in an open search. So, this is a case where we had these 2 individuals who were working with us we were able to grow them in our culture, and they were wonderful teachers when they came to us, but I'd like to think we added to that growth. And then they were able to rise right to the top in the team hiring process. So that's great. We have a new technology specialist. This was a replacement for someone who left, James Henderson, just hired him. Very excited for that. Blair Duncan comes to us as a high school science teacher. She's going to be phenomenal. Amanda McDonald, you'll see this is a new position. We advocated for a second grade teacher because of the enrollment spike, and to make sure that we were providing this resource for our students who may be dealing with any type of gaps in the early literacy and numeracy. And we hired a dynamite new teacher, Ms. McDonald, to be joining us next year. We still have an ESP that we need to hire at Osgood. We have a school adjustment counselor named Maeve Delia. Maeve will be bridging between Osgood and Deer Hill, and we're very excited for her to join the team at both those schools. Colin Myers is a middle school band teacher. Very excited. He comes to us with a very impressive pedigree. We're looking forward to the work he'll be able to do with our students in middle school band. We have Laura Ramos, is a middle school choral and general music teacher coming in. So there'll be a great team in our middle school. Very excited about that. We have a new civics teacher coming in for the middle school, Ashley Hannon, and that's an existing position because of a retirement. And then we have a math interventionist, which we've hired, a math specialist / interventionist. Her name is Jennifer Cronin. She's going to be phenomenal, and really excited for this this opportunity to grow our math program. And we need some support there. We recognize it, and she's going to do a great job in collaborating with the existing team. Middle school math teacher, we had a math teacher retire, and we were able to move Erin Foley, who was doing a split 0.5 position, into that role. So we're excited to have her because she's a very strong teacher.
What grade is that?
That's the middle school.
Yes, great.
Erin, that will be, let's see, 7th grade. So very excited about that. Erin Calberer, this is our nurse. So one of our amazing nurses just determined we had a 0.5, and then because of factors that go beyond school, we had to shift it a little bit to 0.7, 0.3. So what we're doing now, because the 0.5 nurse, which was a 0.3 nurse, has decided that she's not going to be here next year.
Full time.
Now we move the other one full time.
What school?
This is the middle school.
Okay.
So we had 2 nurses, and now we have one that's full time.
Which,
And she'll have better window and bathroom situation.
yeah,
Oh, well, you'll hear about that. That's,
Okay, I won't jump on that.
we're already moving on that, and that's coming along
I'm just
nicely.
excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So my point is, we actually love both nurses, the middle school.
Right.
This is nothing disparaging, but it's nice to have a full-time nurse.
Full-time,
yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
good.
Prior to 2-3 years ago, there wasn't even a news.
No.
So-
So now we have a full-time nurse at the middle school, full-time nurse at the high school, full-time nurse at
Really
Deer
nice
Hill.
place in life to have a consistent nurse.
Very consistent.
Yeah.
And the fact that the middle school kids don't have to walk over.
They don't. And although
Yeah.
the two nurses collaborated well, it's a full-time nurse, so that's
Yep.
great.
This is great.
The middle school reading specialist, I'm hopeful that we're gonna hire that very soon. I know that's coming to a conclusion.
Yeah,
Very excited about just making sure we fill that position. It's a
is that
big
what,
one.
high school you just said?
No, that's middle school.
Oh, we already hired some, right?
We did, but that person's moved on, so we're replacing that
For
person.
what,
Middle school,
for what? There was math specialists?
reading specialist,
Oh, reading, okay.
So that was a new
We
position
just hired
last
them
year.
Okay.
last year.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got them.
Yep,
It's a lot.
yep, it is a lot. We have a science teacher, grade 6. This is a long-term sub 1-year position named Hannah Johnson. She's going to be very strong. And we do have that technology position, which comes from the Erin Foley position, which we had. So this is budget neutral as well. And we're going to be able to hire a robotics slash technology teacher. That's going to be exciting. And it's been a tricky one. So if anyone's listening out there who's interested in that, we're struggling to find the right match for that position. So we're very excited to take your application if you're looking for it.
Maybe not just
I can't
me.
even turn my phone.
And then we have an occupational therapist, 0.4, which is an existing position that we're filling, and that we're hopeful that if we had this conversation in a couple of days, we would be able to fill these gaps in. So we're that close, as you can see, Barbara nodding her head. So we're very hopeful with that.
This is a really good position to be in at this point in the summer.
This is a very good bill, and knock on wood,
Yeah.
I'll take it. We're with what we have, and they're incredible people, our first choice in every single circumstance, which has been wonderful.
That's fantastic.
And speaking of also very happy, I'm very happy that we have 4 of our 5 contracts ratified, and we have one that's very close to being ratified, I'm hoping, and voted upon. And we've hired back every single one of our administrators who, I think makes a great team here. So that's also rare, from what I'm hearing on the South Shore, that people are not having such success with bringing folks back. And I just like it because we were a new team. This provides our continuity. And of course, I like it because they're wonderful people. But all of the folks here, including, obviously my contract's been renewed, which I'm incredibly honored about. Dr. Scollins has renewed her contract. Principal Scott has renewed his contract. Assistant Principal Noyes has renewed her contract. Principal Mills has renewed his contract. Assistant Principal Salas has renewed a contract. Our food service director has renewed a contract. Michael Stapleton, who's our secondary level team chairperson, has renewed his contract, and our athletic director, Steve Bertondi, has renewed his contract. So
Wow.
we're in a very good place to continue, and also not to back up at all, because you do inevitably back up a bit when you bring new people on, and we're forging forward. So this is all I view very good news.
That's great. Anything else on staffing and hiring?
Not at this point. Anything else from your perspective, Barbara or Sue? Okay.
No, I think that covers it.
Mr. Kearney, any questions?
Yeah, I would like to see us have something like, it says like what wasn't funded. Like, we all know that we need a math specialist.
Yeah,
Well, that's coming.
That's coming.
That's next agenda item.
Oh.
Because I agree. So
And I also too just mentioned that there is nobody here mentioned for the arts and arts director. For the administrators. Is there an arts director? Because I know we have an.
we don't have an arts director. So just if you hold that thought, though,
Okay.
we'll be.
All right, well, come, okay, that's,
Please.
then I'm good with those questions.
But we do have an excellent 6 through 12 department head of arts, but that's different than an arts
right.
director,
Right,
right?
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and my follow-up question to that would be, that would be funding, so.
Yeah.
No, so like, good, thank you.
I'll just say you will very much enjoy our next agenda item.
Okay, great.
Ms. St. Ange.
I'm just thrilled to see such a great, I feel like we're in a really great position. Summer is often a really busy time. I also think, working in a different district and having friends who work in different districts, having all of our principals and assistant principals and you and Dr. Scollins coming back is amazing. That's just not what we're seeing in other places at all. And I think it puts us in a great position to continue with our goals and to continue making progress and to hopefully have a year that's focused on that, on the goals and the progress and not on, so much of the minutia and
I couldn't
other things that we've had to work on lately.
Could not agree more. And I think that having them back is a tribute to the community and the wonderful community this is. It's a great place to be a leader or a teacher, and also the teachers, that they work so closely with. And that they're excellent communities. And, my goal has always been to, be a distributive leader, and you have to create those cultures in those schools. and to empower the principals and assistant principals to do that. And they're doing a great job. All of the schools are really thriving, individual communities. We're growing, we're still growing, and there's a lot of work to do, but I'm happy that they're all coming back.
I think it's largely due to those of us on the school committee who showed up tonight.
Oh, in the school, of course, the school. I mean, I meant that with the community.
Just the three of us, really. I think, no, it is a lot of your leadership, Dr. Sullivan, and the leadership of your team. And it is a great thing. One of the things that we talked about and that continues to strike me as I sit in this school committee is the complexity of this organization. Do you have, we talked about this and maybe you have them handy. Do you have the metrics on how many teachers and staff we
We
have
do.
as a district?
That is actually coming up. If we want to, we can pull that up now if you want.
If
But
you had it planned for a different bullet, let's.
we did. That's on the building and school property. So after
Got it.
Sue gives
Then now
her.
we'll love that agenda item.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Guys,
And
so much
just so you know, Sue has done an amazing
Just getting
job.
everything done, all of it.
Sue has done an amazing job with her team,
Yeah.
putting together a kind of a real comprehensive overview of all aspects of the district and financially where we are, where we're projected. This is just a piece of it that she's going to show because that's what I wanted to let everyone know. It's sort of a little bit of an organizational overview from a staffing perspective, but there are deeper dives we can do with more information should you request that. But I'll get to that if it's okay.
That is as designed. So unless there are public comments, we'll close out staffing and hiring and move on to planning for the future. So this is a hot topic. I'll give a little intro about what this is and then before turning over to Dr. Sullivan. So with the conclusion of the school year and hopefully our last partial school year, our year impacted by sort of other things extraneous to education, we thought it made sense to take stock of where we are, where we wanted to be, and where we wanted to go, and what this district could actually become. And so with that, Dr. Sullivan and I and Mr. McClellan sat down and thought about if we had the resources that we would like, where are the ways we could deploy those resources? What could we make these schools become for this community? Just so the community can picture what the school should be and what we think the school should be, what our vision would be. Because, we have talked a lot about a, potentially new facilities upgrade. We've got a town facilities committee that was looking at new building facilities. But I wanted to start us thinking about an overview of the other things that we could do with the right amount of attention and expansion. So that's what this is about. And so with that, Dr. Sullivan, I'll turn it over to you. And
Yes.
Please lead the discussion.
I'm be glad to. These are exciting things to think about. Now, again, just to preface it, this is sort of a vision, and with vision, there are steps you need to take to get to these points. But this is sort of I would say a kind of a putting together of ideas we have as a leadership team, thoughts I've heard from the school committee, from the community, and really looking at our current strategic plan and projecting it out several years where we could lead the district. So I think these are really important and exciting items to consider and to think about. So I sort of broke it down into 4 areas: administration, teaching and learning, offerings, and facilities. And some of the teaching and learning elements, I'll hint a little bit about what that will be for our offerings, because you'll note that potentially we'll be advocating for some things in teaching and learning which would need to have a particular offering. Like, for instance, if I'm advocating for foreign language specialists or world language specialists down at the elementary level, of course, the offering is world language at the elementary level. So just know that's kind of how this will kind of work out. And this is a very high level view without price tags associated. If we ever did get to that point, we could certainly attach those. And some of these are also, particularly in the facilities realm, are very community-based, and they would have to be community decisions, but they would help develop a very thriving and expansive school district as we moved on. So in terms of administration, and this has been brought up, I know, Mr. Kearney, you brought up this several times, to have a director of human resources and communication. Right now, we sort of triage it at our, in our business office with Sue and me and Geraldine Baylor, who's amazing bookkeeper, but we do a lot of our HR work, and I end up taking on a lot of that role in particular. And there would just be a very productive use, particularly if we paired that with a communications officer and did some productive work in that realm to keep the district in the know about everything. And again, these are in no particular order. By the way, the color coding is no rhyme or reason. It's just color coding. I started to do a rhyme or reason. I said, you know what, I'm just gonna keep going with it, and
It's a
someday.
potpourri.
It's a potpourri, exactly. Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We've talked about that. I've always expressed that not one person should own that it needs to be distributed. But, and this is something that is being pushed by the state, there should be potentially someone who's leading it and who's keeping us all sort of pushing in that direction. And this might be something down the road that we're required to do. So I want to put that in our radar as a possibility. And I'm not going to have, there's no particular order here, but near and dear to your heart, I'm sure, because we've talked about this, the high school meeting specialist, Mr. Kearney, as a reading specialist at the high school, to continue the work that we're doing at the middle school and to push that up to the high school level. That role becomes different, but it's it's still needed. It's still very needed.
I thought there was a math specialist.
There
That's
is.
what we're teaching, learning. Oh, administrator. Okay.
Yeah, actually, that that should actually be, scratch that, that shouldn't be an administrator.
Okay,
That should
that
be-
should be over here.
Yeah, it's over there.
Teaching and learning.
I forgot to scratch it. I have a note to scratch it and I didn't.
No
So
worries.
I'll change that. That's coming. District-wide security team, 4 employees. So we really one of the things that came out in the security report is that it would be nice and important in some regards to have security personnel who were directed to just do that and to not have many, like right now, for instance, as folks come in and out of our buildings, to have someone monitoring just that and not having other responsibilities on top of that to monitor it. This could help in our pickup drop-offs. Paul, when you were talking about that, this person would have a key role in that at each building. And just to monitor things like our cameras, our alarms, make sure that doors aren't
It's a
open.
medical emergency.
Yeah, it's a really important consideration. And to be a perfect team, we'd have one for each school. And they could really work with that. A director of STEM K-12 and a director of humanities K-12. These would be evaluating folks who would evaluate teachers who work in those particular disciplines. Again, STEM would be math and science, and humanities would be ELA, social sciences, potentially foreign language. And that would be important to have that district-wide to make sure that our evaluation was as tight and as constructive and collaborative as it could possibly be by putting experts in the field with those particular experts and not having to rely on a principal necessarily to evaluate the many disciplines we have. They would still play a role in evaluation, but this particular director would play a larger role. Same thing with director of innovation. This person would be driving innovative offerings and would also be working with our technology staff K-12, which of course will be growing as we continue to create offerings. And then there's your director of music and arts, and this includes drama and theater, K-12, to have a first class, high level arts program. Just as it's the situation with foreign language, you gotta really pay attention to the trajectory K-12. This is in no way disparaging to what we have right now. This is just a more focused effort to improve our arts program K-12. And it kind of rolls over into teaching and learning. And some of the teaching and learning elements here, you'll see we have expanding reading resources and supports K-12. That's in our strategic plan at the moment. And that's something we'll obviously take funding. Expanding our MTSS program K-12. This includes supportive positions that will provide tier interventions as well as programmatic approaches. Expanding our computer science pathway for students K-12. This would involve some staffing as we continue to, we're going to maximize our staffing, but as we continue to provide those offerings moving forward K-12. Expanding our math resources and supports K-12. Expanding our culturally responsive teaching resources K-12. So again, if you have that director of diversity, equity, inclusion, the resources that we use and provide for teachers are going to continue to expand. A science specialist at the elementary level, Hingham has this, and it's wonderful where they can really focus on helping our elementary teachers and collaborating with our elementary teachers on science. Takes a little pressure off of them. They have so much to do in the elementary classroom, and this person would really drive that and make sure that science is really important at the lower level. Expanding our vocational innovation options. It was noted in our AI3 report that we were really lacking those in our high school and middle school, and of course in our elementary schools. And that would have staffing implications. Expansion of elementary health and wellness to include full-time positions at Deer Hill and Osgood. Right now, we don't have any health at Osgood. We have phys ed. We have no health. We just have a .8 teacher at Deer Hill. And that was our call as a leadership team to not split that because it becomes not meaningful because it's 0.8. If you kind of spread it out too thinly, we felt it was more appropriate to have that position targeted at the grades 3 to 5 level. We've tried both models, but quite frankly, it's a Band-Aid. We really need them at both buildings. Foreign language specialist in the elementary, who's driving that first exposure for foreign language. Expanding our music program K-12 to include before and after school work. Strings and orchestra, we don't currently offer that in our district and many of the districts around us. Certainly the district that my kids are in, my kid plays the cello in school. Right now, we don't have that opportunity here in Cohasset. Our kids deserve that. And expanding and I should say, obviously I didn't put it in here, but when I'm talking about expansion of art, I'm talking about drama as well, theater. It's very important. Expanding our project-based learning K-12. This is mainly a resource and a professional development matter, but when you do hire science specialists, foreign language specialists, math specialists, you do have the ability to parlay that into more project-based, more authentic assessment, more authentic learning opportunities. That's really exciting. Additional therapeutic program staff members. So now I'm tipping my hat that you're going to see a therapeutic program that I'm going to be advocating for. This would be actually something that would be pretty high on the list. If you ask me if I was going to prioritize it, that would be a real priority for us to create a therapeutic program K through 12, and that would help us with our district placements. We'd have less of them, but it would also help kids across the whole board to deal with the issues that are coming our way societally and individually. Additional pre-K staff, which again, tipping the hat is expanding our pre-K program, which we need to do. And then a math specialist at the high school. So Paul, just to answer your question, that reading specialist that's over in the administration, that should just shift over to teaching and learning. Right. And then you'd have a full gamut of the offerings. I guess I'll just keep going with this, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right, so offerings, free kindergarten. We should absolutely have free kindergarten here in Cohasset. Expansion of pre-K, I think we could do that fairly quickly. We have the space for it. We need to hire another preschool teacher, but we can mirror that program we have going right now and basically double everything we have.
Oh my gosh, you feel that so fast.
And we fill it very quickly. I did mention the creation of the therapeutic program district-wide. Mrs. Sawanka, did you want to add anything about what that would look like? I know it's very high level right now, but. You still with us, Mrs. Swanka?
Yes, I am. Certainly, just kind of like and I know we've done a lot of work on that this year at our secondary level, just as we see, the impact of mental health and anxiety and other social emotional needs of kids increase. We've added in a new school, district-wide social worker. We expanded our Bright program. We are bringing our bubble teacher up to the high school as we had anticipated, and really he is going to have a lens toward those students who are presenting with more social emotional kinds of needs, and that's what's impacting their learning. But to continue to really expand this in terms of therapeutic offerings for kids district wide, we see that is kind of the area where we kind of, if you will, lose our kids to out of district programming, and where we really can expand as a district and address all kids and their needs, as well as benefit kids by being able to keep them in their town school.
And while you're at it, anything on the expansion of pre-K that I misstated or that you?
Not at all. It certainly is something that we would, love to be able to do. It's something that I think families would love if we were able to do. And, if we have the funding and the space, absolutely, we would want to, as you said, Dr. Sullivan, mirror that program and just double it.
Nice. Thank you. And then I mentioned elementary foreign language, which would be exciting. Health at Osgood, which I said we currently don't have. So those are programs that I think we can offer that would make this district just be spinning on all cylinders. Some of the facilities improvements, of course, this is not even mentioning the new middle high school, but some of the facilities improvements, the construction of security hubs at each school. This would be a security area that would be near the entrance of the school buildings, where it would be just for that purpose, which is also recommended in the security report. Wellness fitness center at each school. So to make sure that, whether it's a combined one for the elementary or whatever it might be, but something that really helps our kids in an age appropriate way understand and appreciate wellness and fitness.
That's huge.
Additional custodian positions, if you remember that report that was done a few years ago, back before Sue came on with us, we're still not there yet. We're still not quite where we need to be, particularly if we move forward with new building, a new footprint. We will need some more custodian positions. I would love to see something in the realm of an art center or an elementary art center auditorium. Right now, we have no auditorium for either of those schools. We use our gymnasiums to do basically our arts. Our band rooms are fairly inadequate spaces. They're not, they're not, I shouldn't say inadequate. They're bare bones. It would be nice to have some sort of auditorium, even if it was a shared one between the two buildings. That would be something to think about. Again, that's a thought, but just in ways to improve our arts, that might be something we look at. The introduction of all needed security elements mentioned in the recent security report. Obviously some of that is a bit confidential, but there's a slew of things that we can tighten up and work on. And then long-term transportation solutions, parking for our school buses. We very much need that. And then a redesign of Deer Hill Library, which is a beautiful space, to create a learning commons, much like the room we're in now. And that would be something that we can work on through other funding sources. Really would be nice if we were able to do that as a district. So there's a lot to chew on there, but I did think it was a good time to kind of look at sort of a shoot for the moon approach here. And give you all a sort of a thought of what are some of the exciting things that we might want to look to do.
Can I ask, with the therapeutic program, and I may have missed, I know that Mr. Wonka just spoke to this, but I think of like reasons kids are put in different districts. And so like a language-based program, is that included in that? Did you just say that and I just missed it, or?
Can you hear that, Barbara?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question, Lydia.
I'm just curious, like when we're thinking about a therapeutic program, I'm just wondering how broad the definition is. If that would include like a language-based program, a language-based classroom. I'm just thinking of reasons that children are put in different districts and what needs they have and how we can or cannot meet them. Like, would that ever be on the list of, wow, that would be great to be able to offer here?
So certainly, what we're looking at creating at the Deer Hill, what we have at the middle school in terms of our special education reading teachers really is a very language-based kind of classroom. The size of Cohasset, when you talk about it being kind of like a fully fledged program, we want it to be flexible enough to be able to meet the needs of all students and kind of not pigeonhole it into like a classroom, a program kind of a thing. Certainly difficulties in learning stem from a variety of things, and there can be a lot of comorbidity between diagnosed disabilities of the academic and educational sort, as well as compounding things like anxiety and other social, emotional, and mental health kinds of things. But a therapeutic program really would have that as the primary area of disability that's getting in the way of being able to access the curriculum.
Yeah. Okay.
Great, so thank you, Dr. Sullivan. I guess the only other context I have before opening up to formal committee questions is that obviously these things aren't, I don't think there's anything on here that's free kindergarten, but that costs us money. So this would represent, if you were to check all these boxes and do all these things, it would represent a significant investment from the community. So it's the sort of thing that we would look at town budget, town meeting, talking to people in the community to vote, and it would require a real commitment on the part of the town. So that was what we were thinking about in developing this, is if we had our wish list of all the things and we can make these schools what they can be, assuming we could get the funding that we needed, what would that look like? And so that's what this is now. None of it is within reach in our current, I mean, maybe a marginal thing here or there, but none of it is really within reach in our current budgetary scenario, at least as far as I'm concerned. So this is definitely a predicated on a revamp of what the school funding situation looks like. But it's exciting, but I wanted to give that as context. And Mr. Kearney, any thoughts, questions, comments?
Yeah, thank you for all this. This is wonderful, because I think it's really outside the box thinking. And it's also saying what we need, right? I mean, this is our wish list. I would like to see some kind of like, what would it cost? Because then you can present it. I know it's just a start, which is awesome. The other thing that I would recommend, like an administration, would be something as opposed to like director of wellness. Somebody that is good, because Mr. Ford and Mr. Sweeney had some really good insight on that. We can build a gym in each one, but who's going to show them how to do it? Who's going to show them how to exercise? So I think that's a priority as far as the wellness goes. If I was to, and of course, safety, there's a lot of priorities here, but I do like the idea of you have the administrator and what's the teaching and learning, and what I'd like to see too here is some after school programs, because if we do build the gym, we should have somebody in here. And it would be somebody from, I don't know if it's a stipend for a teacher stipend, but I'd like to see like Monday through Friday, the gym be open from 2 to 9 or 2 to 6 or 2 to 8, whatever it is. And somebody to staff it.
Yeah.
To be able to, in a gender friendly gym that serves everybody. And, an appropriation workout for each school, right? I mean, you can introduce weights to kids in high school, but normally kids of elementary need to do their own body weight. So there's different exercises to do that. So it wouldn't make sense to do maybe like too many machines for that, although outside has some kind of like machines kids can do, they can actually do it as a playground, but
Yeah,
you know, we really don't have to get into like too many things, whereas opposed to here, we do need a full-fledged fitness center that has treadmills.
yeah.
weights.
I was really thinking of that when I talked about the wellness centers.
Yeah.
Like that was sort of implicit in my visioning of that.
Yeah,
And then I'd love to see the same thing with the arts.
yeah,
We really should have a real thriving after-school program. We do have some great programs
Yeah.
that are offered within the schools, but just a little more formalized as
Yeah.
to what we're offering. I mean, I know my own son gets most of his, he plays the saxophone and he gets a lot of his practices when he goes there before school, you know, twice a week. And we did, now remember, when Principal Sullivan came on, we moved music to be in the school day
right, which is
more,
awesome.
more prominently.
Yeah,
But you really need both.
Mhm.
You know, you need that thriving opportunity before and after school. Same thing with drama. My kids are very heavily involved in
Yeah.
drama, and
Yeah.
it's all after school stuff. So
and if we, again, if we could have a goal of keeping the schools open after school, and it's something that, you know, there's other ways to do it as far as bringing the rec in and maybe doing a cooking class or, you know, something that's always,
well, that's that vocational opportunity.
yeah, always, because there's a lot of kids that, you know, to be honest, there's a lot of people in this town who don't even know how to jumpstart their car. You know?
Right.
It's just reality. I mean, and you know, those are the things that we probably have to.
Agreed.
Common sense,
Practical.
you know, but I'm really impressed with this.
Yeah, it's a start. It's a start. It's some ideas. Thanks.
Ms. St. Ange?
Yeah, some of the things that Mr. Kearney was just saying made me think when I went to these schools, we did have some of these before and after school opportunities. And one of the major things that made that possible was the late bus. And so I know busing is such an issue for us right now, but I feel like if that were added to a list somewhere, a late bus for kids who live in town and for kids who live in Boston, you know,
Right.
so that anyone who wants to be able to go to these extracurricular activities can go. We used to stay in the art room in Miss Berman. We used to do like plays after school.
Right.
We had band with Mr. Bigini. We were here all times of day.
Right,
We had a late bus
right.
Yeah.
and it made a
right.
big difference.
Lydia makes a good point too, because if we're talking about traffic, I know it'd be different in the morning, but you know, periodically people staying for after-school programs, I'm sure it'll be less on traffic.
Well, that's a very
But
good
I
point.
didn't want to, I
Yeah,
just
that's
love
fine.
Lydia going.
Yeah, no, I know. And there are only 3 of us, well, 4, 6 of us. There's so many people. But I just think like when we're thinking about, okay, director and then
Yeah.
teaching and learning and offerings and facilities and then like transportation and accessibility.
Yeah,
Just
no,
kind of that element of it is like,
you got it.
geez, and now we need bus drivers and we need
Or-
them
or-
more.
Or-
Maybe we'll have our electric school bus just running all times of day.
No, but
It's great, taking them anywhere. even
Really
if
good.
it's-
Not at night though.
You know, even if it's taking the kids to a local sport, like one of the games that the kids have, right? Like, we're all gonna go to the baseball game today, meet at 3:30, and just having somebody coordinate that event, you know, and that way, you know,
Uh-huh.
and then they could also teach the kids how to behave in games
Yeah.
and make sure that,
Well, it's
you know,
true.
we show a class act when Cohasset goes, you know, we have a certain way that we do things. We don't yell at players, we don't do stuff that other schools do. It's not in the realm of Cohasset. So those are the things that would be helpful. And I think that, I'm taking over your time.
That's good. What I
Go
really
ahead.
like about this is these are all things that we've been discussing as a committee.
Yeah.
And I'm sure iterations of the school committee prior to us have discussed this as well. But it's so important to take this step and have it written down so that we can work towards these goals and start to socialize it with the community, because that's going to be a big ask.
It's rough.
Especially
It's
with
a little
your
rough,
business.
but the ideas are in there.
Right.
Yeah. It's a great step in that direction. So thank you all for your efforts in compiling that.
Sure.
All right, and so, I mean, I would just say that if you look at this and you're not excited about it, I don't know what we can do. This really is, for me, I look at this, I get inspired. I'm like, let's do this. Think about the service we could provide for our kids, for our community, and the benefits just go on. I mean, and some of it is stuff that costs money now, but saves money later, like the therapeutic program district-wide. That's an area where we have more opportunities. If we design it right, we have more opportunities to keep kids in district, keep our spends lower. Transportation solutions, parking our buses. We can solve that. We save some money. So some of this stuff is no brainers. And I think that, you know, we should think about these, and the point is to socialize them at meetings like this with the community, so we can hopefully think about how we accomplish these going forward. So thank you, Dr. Sullivan, Ms. Swanka, and Ms. Owen, for all your work on this, and hopefully the future comes sooner than we think.
Mm,
I would hope that.
Yeah, like before our discussion.
After that, I'm.
Mine are quick.
Clock's ticking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, Dr., any community comments from planning for the future?
There are none. I think at this point, I'll probably say goodnight to Ms. Swanka.
Ms. Swanka, thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. So with that, we'll turn it to the next agenda item, buildings and school property.
And I will turn that over to Sue, and Sue, I can put the document up on the screen. Do you want me to have, you want to share it, or do you want me to?
I can share it if you want to
I will.
give me access.
I will.
Loving the color of all of our handouts tonight.
It's a colorful handout.
Very colorful.
You are a co-host.
Okay. So, a little different report for me. Just want to go over some of the projects that are going on. As I'm sitting here looking at it and listening, I'm thinking of more things that I didn't put on the list, but I will mention it. So it's a pretty big list. I started with the big one first, the update of our summer projects. Starting with the track replacement. So if anyone's been here to the middle high school, you can see that our track is completely dug up, out of use. It's been blocked off. The public should not be on the track. We've tried to put signs out there and cones for safety reasons. Multiple things have been going on the track. Right now, they've dug it all up. I believe tomorrow they're going to start fine grading it, or at least start the project. And the hopes is they're focusing on getting the track paved by the end of next week. So that project, that piece is moving along very quickly. And hand in hand with that is the football field light replacement. So they were actually on site the last few days as well. The football field, the field lights have all been replaced. They're actually doing a test run tonight. If you look out your window in the next hour, you'll probably see the lights on. Hopefully they are working, but they are going to do a test tonight to make sure. Another one that's pretty much complete is the middle school nurses bathroom in AC. I know the doorway has been put in, to switch the doorway to be on the hall side and close off the bathroom door on the nurses side. And I believe either today or tomorrow, they're working on getting the AC unit in there. So that is moving along very quickly. As well as the high school science room, which we learned somewhat affects the central office because it's directly above my office and in the kitchen and part of the business office. The plumber is here. They are digging in the ceiling, taking down tiles. So that project is well underway. Next week will be the big push.
Yeah.
Which they'll be on our office quite a bit next week, working in the ceilings and the pipes and stuff. I don't know, Pat, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, no, I just want to mention that because of that, for safety reasons, you can still contact us. You can obviously email and contact us and find all the emails on the website, but we will be working remotely. My office, I'll probably be in because my office is okay, but there's no place for them to be. So they're going to be at home and just for the week. But I'll put that on the website. But you can still contact us and we're still working and doing business. We just can't be in the space.
It's construction zone.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It's construction zone. It's literally a construction zone. I think my office right now has already been emptied out.
They have to move everything out and rip up our entire ceiling. So, but it's nice. It's going to be awesome because
Think
you'll
of the
have,
fresh ceilings.
we're going to have a whole new plumbing in a science lab. So it's
Awesome.
wonderful.
Right.
Great.
Right. It will actually be a true science lab now. It will have the wash stations and all the plumbing and everything it needs.
Safe.
Can I
That's
move on? Okay. So the flooring at Deer Hill, the adhesive is on back order until further notice, so that project to, continue the retiling is, I don't want to say on hold, but we're waiting for product, which is not a surprise in this day and age. The high school, the press box, the replacement of the press box is going to be in August. They're going to begin the work. I'm not sure how long that will take, but that's the timeline for the press box. There was, thanks to Paul's open eyes on our water filtration systems, there were 2 or 3 bubblers that weren't replaced with the hydration station. So that is actually happening right now over the next few weeks to make sure that all of our bubblers have been replaced. I think Nick said there's like 3 of them. More so, I want to say in the middle school area. I'm not 100% sure. Deer Hill is having some roof repair work done that facilities is overseeing. They're also looking into, by request, getting the outside drinking water. We're in the beginning stages of that. We know we have a water system here at the middle and high school. I'm not sure about the elementary schools, but facilities is working on getting all that information and getting that ball rolling.
It's easier with the high schools because it's there. It's a little bit.
Outside hydration station.
Mhm.
That's really key. It's water, It's a big thing.
Right, we're working on it. We're getting there.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
Just lots of things going on. Rekeying of all outside door locks. So there's been big discussions on this. Facilities and our office has gone around and around. There's just too many keys. There's too many keys out there. There's been too many duplicate keys made. So the simple fix is just one more time to have the key company come out, rekey all the outside locks, and it's going to be very, very limited to who has keys. Because if you have a door fob, you can get in the building. You don't need a key.
Yeah, and it registers who you are.
Correct.
Right, the key is, only a certain amount of people should have the key.
Yeah. You just kind of.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Thank you for that.
Middle school on their new doors out front, they're putting the ballistic window film on there. To follow suit with some of our other windows. The kitchen cafeteria replacement, that's going to start the beginning of August. I didn't list that here. That was one of the things that popped up as I was sitting here.
So if you scroll down just a bit.
It's not on the list.
So it's not on there. I'm sorry. Good.
It's not on. Now there was
there you
2
go.
things
It's
that
on the list. It isn't, but
It's not typed.
it's on the list in my
We see
head.
it. Yeah,
Right,
no, we
so-
see it.
Complete redo of the cafeteria upstairs, the middle and the high school, and expansion of. So we should see a new look come
So-
fall, with some new offerings, vending machine. So that's really good. The other thing that I know Athletic Director Rotundi is working on getting information. I don't know if he's reached out to you at all, Paul, information on the fitness, upgrading the fitness center and getting some new equipment in there. So those are just some of the projects, I should say. There's probably 1,000 more that I just can't think of off the top of my head. But it's very busy summer, and I have to say I'm impressed with how quickly some of our projects have already been started and almost completed, which it's phenomenal. I mean, the facilities
Good job.
department really gets a.
Yeah. And I'll call Steve this week. I'll actually call him tomorrow and set up something.
So I don't know if you guys have any questions on these ongoing projects. Like I said, there's more going on. I just, like a PA systems going in the middle high school. A couple other capital things are happening. But
Well,
these are
so we'll be able to update on all those in August. So,
Yes.
this is just what we have going on kind of right a second.
correct. These are the big ones.
We'll just do our.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we do have a couple other heavy agenda items, so let's keep brief questions,
All right,
but
fine.
Mr. Kearney?
Yeah, do we have a drawing of what it's gonna look like for the press box? And just make sure it's not on the sidewalk for the 32-inch, 42-inch actually. Make sure they don't make the same mistake, because that's just not gonna. The planning, when are they,
So-
press box?
August.
Right, so the press box, because it's completely being replaced by the insurance company, the press box has to sit on the same footings.
Yeah, but that's
Um,
not gonna work. That footing's illegal. No, you're not gonna put, that footing doesn't have access for people that have in wheelchairs.
So
That has to be looked at before.
yeah, let's just rephrase that. Let's make sure that whatever we put in is up to code.
Right.
Because there may be some code changes that have happened since that it was originally built, and it seems like one of them, one in particular might relate to ADA compliance.
I would think the insurance company would.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
So that's why, that's what I'm saying,
But-
like, can we,
But double check.
Chair,
I'm sure they will, but let's just make sure that they are
can
aware.
you
that-
send us the, can you send us the, I mean, they must have had to go through the building department to send us a, I'd like to see what it's gonna look like.
I can ask from a copy of the footprints, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that would have to be approved, no, we just, I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
So bring that
everything,
by the
everything we
committee.
build has to be up to that code, you know, so I would assume that
Well,
if it
was built
needs to, be, if it needs to be, it will be.
Okay,
But we will confirm and not assume.
okay,
Yes.
trust it, but verify.
Yes.
Yes.
That's it, I'm good.
My question is perhaps smaller scale than these, but because I'm very concerned about bathroom stalls, this is Owen, is it possible to put on the list for each building to just check the hinges and latches in every single stall
Do
so that we start the school year, you know,
Touchless,
peeing securely?
yeah,
I will make sure.
Thank you
I will
very
make
much.
sure, Lydia.
yeah.
Thank
and,
you.
I just have one other.
You can go, I'm
Because we're talking
done
bathrooms.
with my
and I-
stalls.
She makes a good point, the stalls. Also we talked about touchless sinks, because right now the kids got, I don't know how they can wash their hands at the same time. Like holding the thing down, going like that, it just doesn't make any sense, so.
So I think that's on our, that was something we looked at the subcommittee, so we.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm just bringing it up.
No, it's good to keep us honest.
Yep, okay, that's all I have.
So, I have nothing, Miss Owen, if you want, I think that concludes the summer projects.
Correct.
Good job, thank you.
Okay, so I've got several different lists here. And I probably want to go, I'll start here if you can see FTEs. We talked about, there was a question about,
Just to preface this, so this is just a, just to, as we, you know, finish one year and moving into the new year, this is just an operational overview of what we have for staffing, just so the committee and everyone out there gets a sense for how big of an operation, how small of an operation we are, where are our staff, how are they allocated? and
Yes.
By building,
thank you.
because that'll be useful. No, it's fine.
No, thank you, Dr. Sullivan.
You're
Sorry.
welcome.
I wasn't sure which way, because I have it summarized and I have it by school. So you can see here, Osgood and Deer Hill, there's the FTEs, and so there's 15 teachers at Osgood, 16 teachers at Deer Hill, and then it goes down the list, you know. PE is physical ed, art, chorus, music, and it goes down, you know, how many ESPs we have per building. It goes right through every body that is in that school, right down to the custodian. So you can see here, the total at Osgood is it's 47.1 FTEs or 47 bodies. And at Deer Hill, it happens to equal out quite nice. It's 48.5 FTEs and 48.45 bodies. So that's pretty the same, basically. Then you get into the middle and the high school. Same thing. You can see how many English teachers, how many math teachers, how many science teachers. All this information is reported to DESE on a yearly basis. So they have this on record. I don't know if just going through it, if there's any questions, just shout out. And so that's the individual schools, and then this is the district wide. So this would be central office.
1.0 superintendent, I see.
Yeah.
So.
Half mind, but a whole body.
This is the bigger picture, which basically summarizes all of that. So you can see, you know, regular, and it's listed, regular ed, special ed, or undistributed. So it gives you an idea, if I can look at the bottom, there's 222.06 FTEs in our district, which equals 275 bodies or head count. I call it a head count. So physical people is 275, but some of them work half-time, some of them work 0.6, 0.4, and that's where you get the FTE count of 222.06. And you can see it's broken down by central office and building administrators and special ed administrators, how many regular ed teachers we have, how many specialists we have, how many guidance counselors. Undistributed is usually the staff that support both. We support just regular or just special ed, they support everyone. I don't know if someone had a question on that.
Any questions from the committee? I'll just open for it.
I think it's a good thing to look at this year to year, obviously, and even maybe periodically to make sure, what we're out with FTEs and are we responsible, being responsible.
If you have it, I'd love to see, 5-year look back on growth. I don't know if you have it. We can start this year and move forward, but
Yeah, well, look, I mean, it was kept in, because we've had so many different business directors over the last, 15 years, way before I was here. The formats are very different.
No.
And also the way they kind of counted them was a little different.
Yeah.
So it might be better to move forward. We can go back a little bit, certainly, and look at it. I think it's a good, it's good.
It's a very helpful visual.
I mean, I can definitely go forward with it, because this is a document that I did create. And it kind of all ties into each other, so it just feeds as long as I keep the information current. I could go back and try to make it look the same. I'm not sure it would give us the bottom numbers. But like Pat said, classification wise, it'd be very different.
from my perspective, Ms. Owen, this is what's helpful now. I don't know that it's worth your time to go back and reconstitute a bunch of data. If it's easy, great, we'll look at it. If it's hard, then we have, I think, what we need going forward. Like, for example, I did not know with any certainty that we have 275 human beings that work for our schools.
Right.
That's a significant number. There's 275 families that in some way depend on our schools just as employees. So that's interesting.
Yes. And these numbers are strictly what the school budget funds. So if I go down, this is just summarizing that exact same table, just making it smaller. And then we get into your staff that are funded by grants. So here are our grants.
18 of them.
Here are our total FTEs. So you can see there's another 12 and a half FTEs in our grants. Whoops, sorry about that. And the head count is 19. And then in addition to that, we have our revolving. So you can see our early childhood, our kindergarten, our cafeteria, our transportation, our athletic revolving. How many FTEs, what categories they're in, and the head count is 26. So
that's additional. So the 26 and the 19 are in addition to the 275.
correct. These staff are funded by revolving accounts. And the staff above, these staff are funded by our grants.
320 is
320.
So I don't know if there's any questions on any of that. That's the summary of the FTEs. Like I said, we're building a personnel budget, which entails all this information, and it's pretty in depth. But this was the summary. These are the numbers that actually pull from that report, which is great. It's very helpful, especially when we're reporting to DESE when they're asking how many of each category we have.
And no surprise, we've seen the biggest growth at our middle school over the last few years because that's the school we're building. So, that's not a shock.
Makes sense.
So, Mr. Kennedy, any questions?
No, just grateful. Thank you.
Ms. on?
Same, it's just really helpful information. Literally 2 days ago, someone said, oh, how many people are employed in your district? And I was like, that is a great question. And here
You can say
it
320.
is.
Here it is. Ms. Owen, no questions from me. I'll just say for the committee's benefit, and those participating virtually at home. I mean, I think what you're seeing here is laying the foundation for us to look at where we are as far as school and where we can go. And I think that's kind of the theme I'm thinking for our school committee this year is to think about the future, think about what our growth is going to be, think about how we can make these schools better. And part of that is understanding where we are and where we want to be, and then pathing it out in the middle and working with the town to do that. So that is excellent. Thank you, Ms. Owen.
You're welcome.
I have misplaced my agenda, which I've now found. So I think that concludes, unless Ms. Owen or Dr. Sullivan, anything else on buildings, schools, property?
Not for me.
Any community comment?
We do not have any community comment.
All right, that moves on. Some of these may be placeholders, so feel free to say if we have no content on transportation.
Any updates on transportation from anything the families need to know?
Not at this point, no.
Okay, maybe we'll have more in August.
And again, these are placeholders, so if there's not any development, we can just say that. Food service, any developments there?
Just that obviously they ratified the contract, we voted it through, and as
What about the vending machine?
vending machine?
Vending machines, it's on order, it's coming. I mean, we've paid
Well,
for, we've ordered it, we've got a purchase order out there, we're just waiting for it to arrive.
Okay,
Do
Yeah,
they
we
have
just
a
start
customer?
tracking. Maybe that'd be something we can maybe make a note to update in August,
okay, yeah.
Absolutely.
but it's ordered and that's the important part for us right now.
Yeah.
And again, you made the point about us wanting to make sure we improve our food. That's what always should be our goal.
Well,
in
yeah, I
food
think
services.
that's a lot of people are interested in that.
And in the contract, distinguishing between the
Chefs.
cook
Yeah.
and the.
Well, I'm just glad it's on there because it's just gonna get better and better, to your point, Lance, that
Mhm.
this is an opportunity for us to put it in gear and go forward. And, we talked about the learning centers as educational centers for the elementary schools and trying to make it more friendly to teach kids about nutrition, and so it's definitely going in the right direction.
Excellent, thank you.
So I think that concludes food service. The last item on our budget resource and governance section of the agenda is the report from school facilities committee. That's normally handled by Mr. McClellan, who's a member, but I believe
I'm a
Mr.
member
Kinney,
as
you are
well.
also a member. So are there
Yes,
any developments
nothing
from
to
our
report.
so nothing to report there. That concludes agenda item F, budget resources and governance. We'll move on to community relations and communication. We do have subcommittee reports from subcommittees and liaisons. I think we did not include, or maybe we meant to, but the agenda was not clear to me, so I did not bring the proposed subcommittee restructuring because I didn't think it was clearly on the agenda, and that was on me. But I'll just open the floor for any reports from the existing subcommittees. We will reconstitute those at our next meeting.
No, nothing to report.
Nothing to report. I have a liaison meeting tomorrow, but nothing's happened.
Excellent. And that is to be expected for the meeting in July, in middle of July. So with that concludes our community relations and communications. And we will move on to the school committee governance portion of the meeting. We have a fairly significant agenda item, and that is our superintendent evaluation. Dr. Sullivan, would you like to evaluate yourself? No, I'm kidding.
Lance, I was gonna ask you if I could.
Sure.
For a second. Do you think we should table that when we have everybody here?
Well, we have a quorum, and Mr. McClellan, his input is in the consolidated report. And Mr. Carr was not part of the committee during the period covered. So we have the perspectives reflected of the relevant people.
Okay.
Mr. McClellan is intimately aware of the contents of the summative report, so I was planning to present this here to the both of you and to Dr. Sullivan and to town. And then at the end of that presentation, I would entertain a motion, but if we don't have one, or if we want to table it at that point, we can decide to table and provide any additional comments. If that makes sense to the industry.
I think Craig is the one who was asking us all for our input, so he knows literally what each of us has said. And so, since he's the only party who's not here, he's not really missing it. He's the one who's kind of
Okay.
providing this to us.
So
But I understand what you're saying,
Okay. It's fine.
but I think the circumstances allow us to go ahead.
Get through it. Okay.
yeah, he is aware, and if we don't want to,
Only because I haven't seen it.
right, we have it put on the screen.
Yeah,
We can't give it to you in advance because
Okay.
that becomes a deliberation.
okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, good,
So,
good,
so we
good.
have to do it live. So that's a open meeting issue. rather than
Okay.
So no, we're not trying to sandbag you.
No.
I thought
I'm
you
just
were.
trying to get it. It's really important. Okay,
So,
if
so,
everybody feels comfortable.
yeah, so Mr. King, just to be clear, we'll go over.
Yep.
If we need to take another, if we need to boot the approval of the adoption of the report to another meeting. If you have substantive feedback, we can take that.
Okay,
This is part of the process.
right, it's fine.
So we've given input, created a summative evaluation, and we'll go from there. So, Dr. Sullivan, do you awkwardly have it that you can put on the screen?
I absolutely, I know. I'm glad to share.
I
so-
know, right?
No, it's.
Live.
So just to give a little more structured background for those, if anyone's watching at home, we don't have anyone in the audience. So the way this process works is each committee member receives a form that we complete that looks a lot like what you were seeing here. We individually complete this form and give individual rankings. Those individual rankings were each sent to our then chair, Chair McClellan, who then created what is known as the summative evaluation report. This is supposed to be the completed aggregation of the committee's report. For the purposes of the superintendent evaluation, the evaluation is done by the committee as a whole, not by individual committee members. So we will, at the end of this process, which may be tonight, it may not be tonight, vote on whether or not we approve this evaluation. And eventually we have a committee evaluation to provide to the superintendent. The goal of the superintendent's report is to provide the superintendent with actionable feedback on his performance over the course of the year. He's the male gender because he is a male. And to provide actionable feedback so that he can see where his strengths and weaknesses are going forward and address those accordingly. So with that, I'm not going to read the entire report, but it will be on the screen. You can read it here and you can read it at home. I'll highlight some key points. So the evaluation comes into a series of steps, step 1 through 4, I believe. And the step 1 is assess towards goals. From the consensus report, we have significant progress on each of the goals with meeting expectations on 2 of the 3 district improvement goals. So just so people are aware, there's 5 criteria here. We have, I will say from my review of the summative report, we have some fairly conservative graders on the committee, but we have made significant progress towards each of these goals. We'll go into more detail in a moment. On step 2 is assess performance on standards. These are specific standards set forth in the evaluation process. And there are 4 categories here: unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, and exemplary. Exemplary is intended to be the rarest of categories, only for those superintendents who should be a model for superintendents across the state. And as you will see through the Roman numerals 1 through 4, we have the summative report. I won't say we have, I'll say the summative report draft currently indicates that Dr. Sullivan is proficient in instructional leadership, exemplary in standards 2, 3, and 4, which are management operations, family community engagement, and professional culture. If you'll move to the next page, there's a number of narrative reports. These come from the committee's evaluation. I will summarize these. You can read them as you will. But my summary of them is that Dr. Sullivan, through a difficult period in the Cohasset schools, led the Cohasset schools through very serious operational issues and has really shown his ability as an operational leader and was able to guide us through a significantly challenging time. He also has shown very exceptional communications with the community, oftentimes responding to emails late at night with long emails of his own. These are all off-time actions, and he does a great job of meeting the needs of the community where the community is. And communication is a priority. Some areas for improvement, we have noted. One is a area of improvement of closing the loop with families on communications. And then also there are areas, we can move on to the next page, Dr. Sullivan. Some other suggestions on some operational activities that were not met over the course of the year. Some of them we've talked up here, drop off and pickup, wellness programs, bringing in middle school and high school parents to get the opportunity of being a process. And so these are areas for focus for development. Just to continue to summarize these again, this is a long report. This will be publicly available, so people at home can look at it. I'll give the committee just a couple minutes while I catch my breath and drink water to see if there's anything else on this report. On the narrative part, before we get to the performance goals.
Do you want me to focus on any particular part here?
I'll leave it to the. Okay. So if we are, we'll move to the page 5, Dr. Sullivan.
Sure.
So these are the performance goals. Here there are 5 goals that we were set at the beginning of the year. And this is the summative evaluation on where Dr. Sullivan hit. As you'll see, for 2 of the 5, there were significant progress. 2 of the 5 were met. And then 1, there was some progress. And so these are areas when we do goal setting, we will look to see if those ones that were met, whether or not those continue to be goals that we move forward. And other ones where some progress, where we continue to move forward on that. And then we've seen where we've seen significant progress. We want to close the loop on those. The next standard is the performance rating for standard 1 instructional leadership. Here you can read the various criteria on the form, and committee members will be familiar with that, but the summative evaluation is proficient in all of these categories. If we'll move on to number 7. Management and operations. This is one where Dr. Sullivan scored fairly high in the consolidated ratings. We have overall rating of exemplary with 2 proficiencies. One thing I'll note here from a narrative is that, again, conservative graders, I think, but there was a significant operational challenge for our district, and Dr. Sullivan rose to the occasion every single time. And I think those scores reflect that. And in my opinion, a rating of exemplary is not something, even for best performers, you get every year. You have to have both the great performance and the opportunity to shine. And I think Dr. Sullivan did show that in these areas throughout this last period. So moving on, we've got page 8, if you will, family and community engagement. We again have several exemplaries. Again, we've seen that in some of the comments that we have his working tirelessly to communicate with families, and you can see where he scored a proficiency in there and an exemplary in the remaining categories. Lastly, professional culture. This is another area where Dr. Sullivan has scored high on the consolidated draft. You see exemplary on each one, and with 1 proficient on continuous learning. And again, I'll stress that proficient is not a negative. Proficient is what you strive for. Exemplary is the outlier. And so this is a review reflecting Dr. Sullivan's really rising to the occasion over the past year. I think that a lot of credit was given to that. So that is my summary of the summative evaluation report. And what I'd like to do now, because I had a voice, I tried to do my summary as neutral as possible, even though I had some input in here. But I want to make sure that the other committee members, if there are areas that they want to talk about, revise, this is a work in progress. It is not final until we say it is. So there's plenty of opportunity for input. It's just through the open meeting laws, we can't deliberate without being in this sort of format, which is somewhat awkward. So I'll leave it there, and I will open it up to comments, starting with Mr. Cuny.
Can we start with Lydia first?
You can yield your time, and we'll come back.
I feel like it's like, all right, I'm good.
We can
I'm
start.
good. No, this is great. This is great. Thank you for everybody for taking the time to do it. Appreciate it.
So,
I feel lucky because I'm in a position in which I have worked with different superintendents in different capacities, of course, because I am a teacher. And I think to be a proficient superintendent is a very hard thing to achieve. But in the past year, and before that, to be honest, but this is really just speaking to this year, there have been the opportunities to rise to the occasion, and you have done that consistently. And I truly don't know when you sleep and how you also find time to be with your own family and children. I see you bring them to events. But the amount of commitment and passion that you give to this job is exemplary. It's like your actions, your dedication, the amount of time and thought you put into each thing that you draft, each thing that you propose is really quite impressive.
That's kind. Thank you.
And I feel that this represents very accurately what you have done this year. And I just look forward to all of the future steps that we all get to take
Absolutely.
based on a really,
Yeah, look forward to it. I appreciate it.
some really hard foundation laying. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Cooney, do you want to?
Yeah, I thank you for that. I also want to thank you. And this is kind of a no-brainer on that we have a great superintendent, we have a great staff, and we have, I guess what I like is sometimes I feel like you don't hear me, but you do. And you hear me with action. And I guess the only thing I would say is sometimes I want to know that you hear me anyway. And I don't say that me, Paul Kearney, I mean more as a community. And based on what you have to deal with, like not having somebody in human resources and it being underfunded in so many different other ways. And, you know, you do a good job with what you have. And I always say you're super polite sometimes. And it's a good way to be. It's just sometimes when we got to get something done, I think sometimes we can't be so polite. Like when it comes to the air conditioning or the way the buildings are, and you're stuck, you do so well to navigate that you're kind of in the position of, hey, I got a lot of people watching me that I do. I mean, you do. Your salary's public. I mean, you're a public figure. It's very difficult than what other people are going through.
Right.
I mean, and you handle it well. You handle it. And for me as a parent, I feel like you're in my corner, you know, because you are a parent. You understand what I'm saying. So the only thing I would ask you to do is just more of a verification that you heard what I said. And I think a lot, and every time you do it, I'm almost ready to say something, and you say, Paul, we already got it. Like, and that's what I'm used to it. And I guess that's okay with me too, because you are listening.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Listen to everybody in the community. You're very polite to people in the community.
Yeah.
And I know how difficult it is, again, and how important the human resources is, and that you're doing it.
Yeah.
You know, we don't see what you got to deal with all the teachers and that drama. It's like, and I don't mean just teachers in a bad way. I mean, just the drama of having people work for you.
Right.
You got people calling in, doing this. I understand. I run a business.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to do. And the way you handle it is exemplary.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate all the comments, and I haven't been able to really read this and get into it yet, but
We should have given 2 days in advance.
no, I don't think it should.
It's weird. There's lots of rules on
I
that.
know, which is why.
But the constructive approach is important to me, and I
Yeah.
do value that.
Well, I always told you when you first got the job, I always said, I'm going to keep you
Hold me
accountable.
accountable. You should.
You said to me, I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, the community should.
It was 4 years ago.
That's,
And I can believe you've been good with that statement.
yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I'll just jump in, actually, Dr. Sullivan, you can turn to the root, page 9. This echoes Mr. Kearney's comment. I don't know which member says what. This was not compiled by me, but down at the bottom, there's a areas suggested improvement.
Mhm.
And actually, I read this and you said you do. When families raise issues, Dr. Sullivan, he always addresses them to the extent of his power, but sometimes the resolution, though often successfully achieved, is not immediately evident. So coming back, one of the specific items for feedback I think that you're hearing is coming back with those, I hear you, here's what we did. And sometimes you can't, sometimes you
Right.
can't, sometimes it involves specific students or confidentiality,
Right.
but making sure that somehow you close that loop, I think
That's good to hear.
is a piece of.
It's constructive and actually, because sometimes I try to close loops through my, my administrators. That's my job and they try to close it through teachers because we're all kind of working and, I hear the problem. I'm addressing it. I'm addressing it and trying to deal with it in some way, but perhaps, I need to be a little more proactive myself in doing that in some noted circumstances. But I appreciate that. It's good input for me.
This conversation and our conversation with Mrs. Sarwanka earlier makes me just think about how Ms. Owen has kind of adjusted her finance report and has a list of ongoing concerns and the status for each one. It's kind of like in the works or pending or out for bid. I feel like that actually, even though that's obviously so much easier to do from a financial perspective, like our district goals, our special ed concerns, things that we bring up with you, it's just a really helpful way to have kind of like, here's our running list of what's going on and here's the status.
Yeah.
I don't know
Well,
if it can look the exact same way, but it's helpful for me to see like that.
We should talk about that. I want to
Yeah.
focus still on the superintendent.
No, I know, it just made me
But
think of that.
That's,
No, it's good.
there's room for that in the formative too. When we do our formative.
I know you will be tempted to respond to some of this stuff, but you don't and.
No, I
you
won't.
don't need to. But in any event, so I think well, I'll just put it this way. We don't have the full committee, but we do have a quorum. I would entertain a motion for the committee, if the committee believes this reflects their views. I would entertain a motion to approve this evaluation report as the evaluation report of the committee to Dr. Sullivan for the prior school year.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we'll just do Mr. Kearney.
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Alonso? Aye. Lance Dial, aye. That is 3 of the 3 members, 3 out of 5. That resolution passes. Dr. Sullivan, you have your committee review.
Thank you.
Please take time with it. If you have questions
I will.
for the committee, please come back to us. We have we have a superintendent evaluation committee, so that if you have direct questions for the committee,
Mhm.
that's a place to start. And then
That's
we can
great.
address any of them in an open forum.
I'm thankful, I'm humbled, and I'm listening. So
Very excited.
I appreciate that.
Awesome.
And I'll grow from that.
And then a slight operational committee note. We are going to try and adjust this process a little bit for the coming year. What I would like to try and do, and I don't know if this is possible, I'd like to think about trying to tie it to elections of school committee members and assumption of office, so that the report is reviewed at the last meeting of the
Right,
final constitution.
right. That way you get the input of the last committee.
Makes
Right,
sense.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
then we don't have the awkward situation where a member who was not part of the committee
Yeah.
at the time
Right.
is.
Sure, Ashley
expected to
would have
vote
been
on
happy. Just
So-
FYI.
Yes, she would. I think so as well.
Yes,
If you're listening, Ashley.
yes.
So,
Too smart for that.
and so with that, unless there are any other comments, we will conclude the superintendent's evaluation.
Okay.
There's no topic not reasonably anticipated by the chair, but I am going to hijack this agenda item to preview a new agenda item, which will be future agenda items. As we go through these meetings, we often talk about things that we want to see and we never formalize them. And so this is where I'd like to put a list together of future agenda items.
Good.
Oh,
What
that's a great
I
idea.
have on mind right now is we do want to continue to talk about the drop-off process for the middle high school. We want to share the offsite agenda, the agenda for the you didn't call it an offsite retreat, the leadership retreat in August. We would like, I think I heard that we would like to get an update, and this may be filling in the teaching and learning academic initiatives, an update on the parents-teacher conference status, how these are going to go, how we're planning to communicate them to, and I know that gets somewhat operational, but this is a community forum, and I think to hear it for people hearing about this new process would be helpful.
Yes,
Um,
that may
so-
not be able to happen until, because that's going to be a CTA conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. These don't have to be next
Future.
meeting.
Right.
These are just things that we want to put on our list. And then, I think there were a couple things that we may want to follow up from, on the student services with respect to the report and, the 2 days, the data on issuing the, IEP reports. So is it IEP reports?
Yes.
Yes.
IEP.
So, and those are more longer term.
I had the vending machine too. that showed-
Vending machine,
Yeah.
let's get an update on the vending machine.
And also too is what we definitely want to take a look at that press box.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
correct.
Give
We
me
don't
blueprints.
Vending, I have an update on vending machine.
Oh,
Sorry.
Can you hold it till August?
The future is now.
It'll be here the end of July.
All right,
All right.
good.
Great, so we'll
So
still
in
hold that
August-
update though.
Paul, in August, I'll have a picture of it.
All
Oh my
right.
God. I want
I
a
wanna
video
get
of
a
you getting a
sandwich.
We'll do a
sandwich.
field trip.
Yeah.
I'll zoom down to the
We'll zoom
machine.
down there.
Stock sandwiches day of.
So, the only thing, just to make sure people heard it, the press box, can we make certain that there's no issues with respect to code, especially ADA compliance? So
All codes should be met.
those could obviously not be anticipated by the chair because they came up in this meeting, but, going forward, they
That's
will
great.
actually be a future agenda item.
Super.
Would that particular item go probably,
It'll go right above or below approval of minutes, right above executive session, so that people can still leave after executive session. So with that concludes topically not reasonably anticipated by the chair. So we go to approval of minutes. We have minutes, thank you to Ms.
Yeah.
St. Ange. We have 5 sets of minutes, 4 were provided a few days in advance. The 5th was provided more recently. So they are in your materials. We have hard copies here. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to review them. We won't go through them.
if there's a question, I can put it on the screen, but I'll only do so if you have a question.
So what I'll do is just see if there's any, what I would do is, let's do this as a batch.
Okay, good. Because we
yeah.
were all here. I just checked to make sure that we were, yeah, good.
I think the most recent one, Ms. St. Ange, was the January 19th.
Correct.
Okay, so are either of you uncomfortable with approving the January 19th
No,
minutes?
okay, thank you, Lydia. This is great.
Do we have any comments or questions to any of the minutes? And I will read them into the record as the days and times before we do. Any questions, comments on any of the minutes as presented to the committee? So if none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Cohasset School Committee meetings from October 3rd, November 3rd, November 17th, December 1st, and January 19th, as presented to the committee.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So we have the approval of the quorum, three out of 3, unanimous approval of the quorum. The minutes are hereby approved.
I will send those to Semester.
Thank you very much, Ms. St. Ange.
Yes, very good.
So with that, I think that includes our public agenda. We do have one item for which we will go into I would propose that we go into executive session. That is for number 3, discussing strategy with respect to collective bargaining. So I would ask for a motion to do that. But before I do, just for people logging on at home, we will immediately come out of executive session and immediately adjourn the meeting. So there will be no more substantive items at the meeting. So we will not be going back on to online. So thank you for logging in virtually. But you can feel free to return to your regularly scheduled programming. So do I have a motion on moving to executive session?
So moved.
All right. Then-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It should be roll call, but roll call.
What time is it? Just so I can write it down. So I can.
8:34.
8:34.
8:34.
I figure I'll give that to Ted, because that's not always recorded.
We'll have the minutes reflect a roll call vote.
Yes, we will.
All right. And so with that, we are now in executive session.
Okay, I'm ending this.